Chapter 803. Almost instantly, Dongli's entire body was charred black, and he let out an incomparably mournful scream. His understanding of Yang Dingtian was completely from nearly a year ago. In addition, when Yang Dingtian was in the Silver Palace, he could almost be said to be powerless. Therefore, he did not take Yang Dingtian seriously at all, nor did he take Dishibian seriously. In Dongli's eyes, Yang Dingtian was at most a 9-star grade, 8 martial grandmaster, and Dishibian was only an 8-star martial grandmaster. With such cultivation, it was completely impossible for them to ambush and kill Dongli. What was Dongli's cultivation level? He had already become a 9-star grade 9 martial grandmaster many years ago. Coupled with the devouring of the space-splitting fire, he was only a thin piece of paper away from becoming a half-sage. Of course, even if they were only separated by a thin piece of paper, the difference in their combat strength was like heaven and earth. However, he felt that with his cultivation level, killing Yang Dingtian and Dongli would not be a problem at all. He could even kill 8 or 10 Yang Dingtian at the same time. However, he did not expect that Yang Dingtian would give him unforgettable pain the moment he came up. This lightning with an incomparably powerful cultivation level suddenly drilled into his Xian meridians. In an instant, his entire body was completely paralyzed. Then, a destructive energy crazily attacked his body. 9-star grade, 9 martial grandmaster energy. He was really too familiar with this level of energy. How could it be? How could it be? Yang Dingtian was actually a 9-star grade 9 martial grandmaster? Could it be that he could fly? How could his cultivation speed be so fast? If it was an attack from any other 9-star grade 9 martial grandmaster, Dongli would not have a problem and could completely resist it. However, this was lightning energy, which could ignore any defense. Although it could not kill him, it could seriously injure him. Just when Dongli felt that all the profound veins in his body were being attacked crazily, the darkness profound flame in his energy reserve suddenly surged out and devoured most of the lightning energy completely. Dongli was stunned for a moment, and then he was instantly overjoyed. The darkness profound flame was actually so heaven-defying? Yes, Dongli's darkness mystic flame was much more fortunate than Yang Dingtian's. Yang Dingtian's darkness mystic flame was extremely weak right from the start. On the other hand, Dongli's darkness profound flame had devoured enough darkness crystals and void-rending flames. It was extremely strong right from the start. Yang Dingtian's black-green mysterious fire was so powerful that it defied the natural order. Unfortunately, it was too strong. Yang Dingtian's Qi-Si could not contain it, so it could only hibernate in the depths of his Qi-Si most of the time. Dongli shook his body lightly, and the charred black on his body immediately dispersed, revealing his naked body. His capital was indeed frighteningly strong, even more powerful than Yang Dingtian's. The moment Dishibian saw his body, her whole body trembled. She suddenly fell to the ground and started to vomit desperately. Yang Dingtian was really speechless. Could they still fight like this? Dishibian was like this. It would be useless even if he broke through to the sage to be in the future. Once the other party took off his clothes, he would vomit desperately. How could they still fight? Ha 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 ha. Dongli laughed wildly. Then he turned to Dishibian and said, Miss Dishibian, when you taste my power, you will be completely infatuated with me. You won't be able to leave me, and you won't vomit either. Before Dongli finished his words, Dishibian vomited even more violently. Dongli then grinned hideously at Yang Dingtian and said, You're actually a 9-star level 9 great grandmaster. It's really unexpected. But so what? You want to kill me? It's purely a dream. You don't know how big the gap is between a 9-star level 9 great grandmaster and an infinite great grandmaster. Is that so? Yang Dingtian saw that Dongli was originally badly struck by lightning, but he was safe and sound in an instant. He didn't know why, but he quickly thought of the dark mystic flame. Dongli also had the dark mystic flame. The dark mystic flame was like a bug in the system. With its existence, Yang Dingtian's mystic skill attack almost had no effect on Dongli. Soon Dishibian stopped vomiting. She took a piece of cloth and covered her eyes. Then she floated beside Yang Dingtian. Dishibian, I'll use something to block your cherry mouth in a while. Then you won't vomit anymore. Dongli laughed loudly. Blurg. Dishi Bian suddenly rolled. Yang Dingtian glared at her, and then continued to stare at Dongli. Since the devil sky-splitting lightning couldn't kill Dongli, it meant that the mystic flame was also useless. Instead, it would become a meal for the dark mystic flame. Since all of his energy attacks were useless, he could only use physical attacks. At this moment, Dongli slowly raised his sword and faced Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, now it's time for you to taste the power of an infinite great grandmaster. Yang Dingtian had already tasted it. Wu Daozi had released the power of an infinite great grandmaster before, but it was only SOSO. It could seriously injure Yang Dingtian, but it couldn't kill Yang Dingtian. Dongli brewed his mystic qi and said with a smile, take a guess. Will this move of mine attack you? Or will it attack Dishi Bian, this stunning beauty? Whoosh! Yang Dingtian didn't talk so much nonsense. He directly used the Devil Spirit Mist cloak and instantly flashed, directly appearing in front of Dongli. And the sword in his hand pierced towards Dongli's chest with incomparable ferocity. Poochie, blood spurted out. Dongli was greatly alarmed. He watched as Yang Dingtian suddenly appeared in front of him, and then the sword directly pierced into his chest. In the midst of shock, his mind almost couldn't make any reaction, but his body instinctively reacted and retreated like lightning. At the same time, a sword slashed towards Yang Dingtian. Boom! An incomparably powerful energy directly bombarded Yang Dingtian's chest. Yang Dingtian's chest suddenly shook, and then his entire body flew out, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Dishi Bian quickly came over, caught Yang Dingtian's back, and injected mystic qi to heal him. But he found that Yang Dingtian's injuries were very light. That's right, because Dongli's terrifying energy directly bombarded Yang Dingtian's chest, and Yang Dingtian was wearing the Devil Spirit black armor, which could almost devour most of the energy. The reason why he vomited blood was because other parts of his body were attacked by the aftermath. Dongli quickly retreated tens of thousands of meters away, because this distance exceeded the limit of Yang Dingtian's instant flash. Then he lowered his head and looked at the wound on his chest. It was more than 2 inches in, almost piercing his heart. Dongli felt cold sweat on his back. It was too shocking. Yang Dingtian's near-emperor-grade soul sword, coupled with the Devil Spirit Mist cloak, was completely a bug. This kind of ghostly flash attack was too shocking. Just a little bit more, and he would have died under Yang Dingtian's sword. He had really underestimated the enemy. Immediately, Dongli looked at Yang Dingtian with eyes filled with hatred and fear. Yang Dingtian, don't think that you can escape my pursuit just because you have the Devil Spirit Mist cloak, Dongli said coldly. I still have a way to kill you. Ah! Separated by tens of thousands of meters, Dongli's sword light suddenly slashed out crazily. Boom, 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 boom. All of a sudden, the sky was filled with Dongli's deadly killing intent. Tens of thousands of meters of sword light densely packed, filled the surrounding dozens of miles of space, all turned into a slaughterhouse. Dongli slashed madly. Almost every second, dozens of sword auras were unleashed. The scene at this time was very similar to the laser killing array in science fiction movies. You can't see where the sword chi is at all, but every inch of space could be. Puff, 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 puff. Suddenly, the entirely water villa was completely destroyed. Without a sound, the entire thatched hut was instantly split open from the middle. The entire boulder was instantly shattered. The entire tree was instantly shattered into pieces. In just a few seconds, the area within tens of thousands of meters suffered unprecedented damage. Countless rocks, countless trees, and all the houses were all shattered. On the ground, a bottomless gully was left. This was the power of an infinite great master. Of course, with such an attack, Dongli's profound chi was completely consumed like a waterfall. This was the stupidest way, but also the most effective way. Almost instantly, Yang Dingtian was in a sorry state, because at this time, within tens of thousands of meters of space, it was all Dongli's sword light killing intent. And Dishi Bian, as long as she was hit she would die, because she had part of the energy of the netherworld ghost fire. She was immortal. But if she was killed, she would still die. So Wolingzi cherished his life so much. Therefore, Yang Dingtian didn't care about her vomiting on the man, hurriedly hugged her delicate body, and then used the demon spirit demon fire to release the most powerful energy shield. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Using the demon spirit mist cloak flash technique, desperately dodging Dongli's sword light that was everywhere. Boom! But under such a crazy attack, it was too difficult to completely dodge, because Dongli's sword light was completely traceless and invisible, randomly released dozens of times per second. So in a short period of time, Yang Dingtian was hit 4 or 5 times. The energy shield of the demon spirit demon fire was directly torn apart. Although Yang Dingtian resisted most of the energy, Dishibian still spat out blood and was seriously injured. Yang Dingtian discovered that in a battle between the top powerhouses, the more helpers the better. If the difference in cultivation was too great, not only would it not be of help, but it would also drag down the battlefield. Dishibian was already strong enough, a 9-star 7th grade great grandmaster. There was not much difference between her and Yang Dingtian, who was a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster. However, in this battle, under Dongli's crazy killing, she could hardly do anything. Instead, she needed Yang Dingtian's protection. If she really wanted to join the battlefield, she could only help Yang Dingtian if she reached the power of a 9-star 9th grade great grandmaster. This can't go on. Dongli has already gone crazy. Yang Dingtian held Dishibian and rushed down to the lake below, diving directly into the deepest part. At this time, the power of water was displayed. Anything that was hit by Dongli's sword light was instantly shattered. Only water, after being shattered 10,000 times, was still water. Yang Dingtian kept diving down. Lishui Lake was very deep. After diving for 10,000 meters, he reached the water. This 10,000 meters deep water could almost buffer most of Dongli's attacks. Therefore, Dishibian was safe at the bottom of the water. When Dongli saw Yang Dingtian diving into the water, he was furious and wanted to rush into the water. However, he quickly thought that this might be Yang Dingtian's trap. He immediately shouted from above, "Yang Dingtian, come out. Don't be a coward. Also, I know that you have the demon mother of illusory spirits. Don't even think about using the demon mother of illusory spirits to kill me underwater." When these words came out, Yang Dingtian was stunned. The demon mother of illusory spirits was his trump card. He didn't expect Dongli to think of it directly. It seemed that although his reason was blinded by hatred, he was still very scheming. Of course, the matter of the demon mother of illusory spirits was not an absolute secret. At least, Ning Wuming knew about it. Since Ning Wuming knew, as one of the young masters of the evil ways, Dongli also knew about it. In this way, he couldn't use the demon mother of illusory spirits to kill Dongli. He definitely wouldn't go into the water. If he didn't kill him today, it would be really troublesome. Yang Dingtian had completely enraged him. If he let him go, he would really cause a reign of terror in Cloud Heaven City. He would cause immeasurable harm to Yang Dingtian's family. Therefore, he had to keep him here today. Dongli shouted in the air, "Yang Dingtian, if you don't appear, I'm going to Cloud Heaven City. Duga Xiao might not be guarding there all the time. I'm going to have a taste of Big Milk Shiman now. Ha ha ha." Yang Dingtian fiercely slashed out profound chi energy from the lake. Suddenly, the entire lake surged with waves. Therefore, Dongli couldn't see the trajectory of Yang Dingtian's movement. Yang Dingtian followed the surging waves and quickly approached Dongli in the water. Then, before he came out of the water, he used the invisibility profound skill and completely disappeared into the air. Then, Yang Dingtian became invisible and gradually approached Dongli. Dongli's gaze was still fixed on the entire lake. Then he realized that the waves in the lake were getting smaller and smaller. Suddenly, he thought that Yang Dingtian knew the invisibility profound skill. Instantly, he broke out in cold sweat. He knew that Yang Dingtian was approaching him. Yang Dingtian's near emperor-grade soul sword and demonic spirit mist cloak were too terrifying. Once he got close, it could be said that he would die without a doubt. Suddenly, Dongli's sword danced crazily. Countless sword auras crazily slashed at the surrounding space, completely protecting his body. Yang Dingtian wanted to get close to him? unless he was slashed 10 times, 100 times. And if Yang Dingtian was slashed 10 times, he would have died long ago. Then could Yang Dingtian be invisible and flash at the same time? Yes. In theory, yes. But in reality, to be invisible for tens of thousands of meters, it would exhaust a considerable amount of Yang Dingtian's profound qi. And to be invisible for tens of thousands of meters, that profound qi would increase exponentially. With Yang Dingtian's current cultivation, he would not be able to support it. Moreover, there was not much meaning in being invisible and flashing. Yang Dingtian continued to get closer and closer. The distance was enough. At this distance, Yang Dingtian could completely flash and stab Dongli. But at this moment, Dongli's sword aura had completely protected him. If he rushed in, Yang Dingtian would be slashed countless times. With unlimited Grandmaster energy, Yang Dingtian could take 1, 2, 3. But what would happen if there were more? Yang Dingtian did not know. Of course, when Yang Dingtian was about to die, the black-green profound fire would appear and devour all the energy to protect Yang Dingtian's life. But at that time, Yang Dingtian would have lost his ability to fight. Dongli could easily chop off his head. The black-green profound fire could protect his sea of qi, but it might not be able to protect his head. Therefore, if Yang Dingtian rushed forward, he might be able to kill Dongli, but the possibility of losing his life would be very, very high. Moreover, Dongli had just blocked Yang Dingtian's first flash attack. Then he might be able to block the second flash attack. Therefore, the situation was unsolvable. But there was another way. That was to let Dongli exhaust all his profound qi. By then, killing him would be as easy as flipping his hand. Therefore, Yang Dingtian hid himself and waited for Dongli to exhaust his profound qi. But obviously, Dongli would not be fooled. When there was only about 30% of his profound qi left, he said coldly, "Yang Dingtian, I know you're waiting for my profound qi to exhaust. I'm not going to play with you anymore. I'm going to Cloud Sky City to play with your wife." After saying that, he retreated quickly. If he let him leave, the consequences would be unimaginable. As he retreated, he waved his sword crazily and surrounded himself with countless sword rays. Yang Dingtian slowly pulled out his sharp sword and held it horizontally in the air, motionless, allowing Dongli to retreat crazily. "Ha ha ha ha. Yang Dingtian, I'm not going to play with you anymore. I'm going to humiliate your wives, ha 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 ha." Dongli laughed wildly and retreated like lightning. Suddenly slash. The sharp sword pierced Dongli's sea of qi in his lower abdomen. Boom! Dongli's sea of qi was instantly destroyed. And Yang Dingtian was still invisible. He did not attack in a flash. Instead, he stood in the same spot and waited for Dongli to collide with his sword, because he had previously moved behind Dongli while invisible. Chapter 804. As it was too easy to be counterattacked by instinct, Yang Dingtian chose to take a big detour to Dongli's back and stab him in the back. However, the result was even more forceful. Dongli retreated rapidly and collided with Yang Dingtian's soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade. At the moment of collision, Yang Dingtian flashed a foot away. Instantly, the soul sword that was close to the Emperor grade pierced through Dongli's waist and his sea of vital energy without any hindrance. Dongli's face was distorted. He turned around and looked at Yang Dingtian. You tricked me. Then let's perish together." Then, he wanted to explode the entire sea of vital energy before it was completely destroyed. However, he didn't have the chance, because his darkness mystic flame rushed out crazily. That's right, Dongli's darkness mystic flame actually flew out of the sea of vital energy and screamed, roared and looked ferocious in the air. When Yang Dingtian saw this, he was completely stunned. The darkness mystic flame actually betrayed its owner at the crucial moment. Any mystic flame would live and die together with its owner. However, the darkness mystic flame actually betrayed its owner and left when its owner was about to die. This was too monstrous, wasn't it? However, the darkness mystic flame that had lost its owner and was alone in the air was extremely dangerous. Its energy would be depleted rapidly. Therefore it struggled crazily and screamed. Then it pounced towards Yang Dingtian ferociously. Because Yang Dingtian was the closest to it, it wanted to find a new owner. Huff! Dongli's darkness mystic flame suddenly entered Yang Dingtian's body. Ah! Instantly, Yang Dingtian yelled out. Because an endless amount of dark energy surged into his body crazily. This darkness profound flame had an owner. Now that it had forcefully entered his body, it seemed to devour all energy wherever it passed. This was a completely violent move. Moreover, this darkness profound flame had devoured more than half of the void-splitting flame. Coupled with Dongli's sea of qi, it was an extremely powerful profound flame. Therefore, when it passed through Yang Dingtian's profound veins and was about to drill into his energy sea, it nearly destroyed everything. Yang Dingtian felt his mind go blank, as if his entire body was about to explode. But at the last moment his sword trembled violently. Poof! Dongli's body flew out. His entire body, from his stomach to between his legs, was split in half by Yang Ding's near-emperor-grade soul sword. His most solid foundation was completely destroyed by the explosion. Then, his body fell heavily to the ground as blood gushed out. As for that darkness profound flame, it was frantically trying to drill into Yang Dingtian's qi sea. Moreover, in order to make up for its loss, it desperately devoured all the energy it could see. Without any obstruction, this darkness profound flame suddenly entered Yang Dingtian's qi sea. It looked like it was about to completely devour everything in Yang Dingtian's qi sea. But in an instant, the black-green dragon that was hibernating in the abyss of the qi sea was extremely excited and ecstatic. It was like a demon that had found the most delicious prey. Roar! Its entire body suddenly bounced out from the abyss. In an instant, this tyrannical and incomparably powerful darkness profound flame suddenly became incomparably weak in front of it. It immediately panicked and wanted to escape, but it was too late. The black-green dragon opened its terrifying flaming mouth and completely devoured the darkness profound flame in one gulp. It swallowed it into its stomach and then dived into the abyss of the qi sea again. At the same time, an extremely powerful energy exploded in Yang Dingtian's qi sea. Yang Dingtian felt waves of nothingness and tremors. This black-green dragon actually knew how to divide the spoils. After devouring Dongli's darkness profound flame, the bigger part belonged to itself, and the smaller part belonged to Yang Dingtian. As a result, Yang Dingtian inexplicably broke through from a 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmaster to the realm of Infinite Great Grandmaster. Of course, the so-called Infinite Great Grandmaster was a very broad and vague concept. Strictly speaking, it was still called a 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmaster. For example, although Dongli and Yu Ming were Infinite Great Grandmasters, they were still called 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmasters. And some Infinite Great Grandmasters were only a piece of paper away from the sage to be. And some Infinite Great Grandmasters were very far away from the sage to be. But in short, Infinite Great Grandmasters were stronger than 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmasters. When Yang Dingtian woke up again, the sun was already setting in the west. He wanted to rush to the ground and tear Dongli into pieces immediately. However, at this time, there was already a person standing beside Dongli. It was Princess Mu Dan. Yang Dingtian's eyes narrowed. I can't kill him, right? Mu Dan nodded and said, originally, His Majesty Demon King had completely given up on him and was ready to let him die under your sword and test your strength. But things have changed. Dongli suddenly became important again, so he can't die. Had he become important? Yang Dingtian said. By the way, I've already devoured his darkness profound flame. I know, Mu Dan said. Oh, that meant that Dongli became important either because of the darkness profound flame or the void-splitting fire. This was Dongli's only support. Then, why did the evil ways suddenly need the void-splitting fire? You want to bestow him with a first-class evil spirit, right? Yang Dingtian asked. Yes, Mu Dan said. Then he's going to harm my family again. What should I do? Yang Dingtian asked. Don't worry, he won't. Mu Dan said. His Majesty Demon King feels that Dongli's soul can no longer be used. His heart is filled with resentment towards the evil ways and violence towards you. So he will let the first-class evil spirit completely crush his will. From then on, Dongli as an independent individual, will no longer exist. Just like you? Yang Dingtian asked. No, it's even more serious than me, Mu Dan said. At least, Dongfang Bingling's soul and will are still intact. He just lost control of his body. Alright, enough chit-chat. It's time to plant the evil spirit. Mu Dan's eyes narrowed slightly. Her hands suddenly converged in the air, squeezing the air between her palms. Suddenly, a purple-blue light dragon condensed and swam in her hands. It was vivid and ferocious. That purple-blue light and shadow instantly set off Peony's incomparably beautiful face, making it incomparably gorgeous. This was the seed of a first-class evil spirit. Second class was green and first class was blue. Huff! Then she suddenly released it. Aow! With a fierce roar, the purple-blue light dragon suddenly drilled into Dongli's body. After the purple-blue light dragon entered Dongli's body began to tremble. In an instant, an unparalleled energy crazily destroyed Dongli's body. His flesh and blood shattered inch by inch. Then, the entire skeleton completely shattered and disappeared. His entire body, only a chi-si, countless profound veins, a heart, and a brain were left. These parts were all wrapped in first-class evil spirit energy. Countless energy rays were moving quickly. Finally, the first-class evil spirit's light dragon drilled into Dongli's chi-si. In an instant, Dongli's destroyed chi-si was repaired inch by inch. The completely collapsed chi-si's inner world was quickly restored. Boom! In an instant, the lake below seemed to be lifted up. The two suns in the sky were completely shrouded. The world of thousands of miles seemed to have been completely changed, as if the end of the world had come. After everything quieted down, the astonishing light gradually faded. Yang Dingtian saw a completely new Dongli standing beside Mu Dan. The skin of his whole body was as smooth as jade. The two eyes that did not belong to him were also shining. The whole person no longer felt like a human. Although the body and face were Dongli's, there was no expression, any emotion, or any hatred that belonged to Dongli. In fact, there was no expression at all, no joy or sorrow. And a certain part of his body was completely empty. A first-class evil spirit had actually failed to restore his manhood. Yang Dingtian asked. Did he break through to the half-sage level? No. It was the evil spirit Dongli who spoke. Before he died, the dark profound flame betrayed him and fled. It took away too much of his power, which you devoured. That's why even a first-class evil spirit couldn't help him break through to the half-sage level. He's still an unbounded grandmaster. So you're saying our cultivation bases are about the same? Yang Dingtian asked. No, I'm still a bit stronger than you, Dongli said. I'm closer to the half-sage level, but I can't kill you now. Mu Dan looked at Yang Dingtian and said, Well then, Your Excellency Yang Dingtian, we'll take our leave. Dongli nodded and bowed. Farewell. Until we meet again, Yang Dingtian said. With that, Mu Dan and Dongli vanished into thin air. Yang Dingtian quickly dived into the depths of the lake, because Dishi Bian was already severely injured. Even though Yang Dingtian had given her elixir to consume, it should still be very dangerous for her to be underwater for such a long time. If something happened to her, Yang Dingtian would have lost one of his most powerful allies. That said, she was sometimes unreliable, often throwing up and crippling her own fighting prowess. By the time Yang Dingtian reached the bottom of the lake, he was completely stunned. Not only was Dishi Bian not in any danger, she was completely healed. Yang Dingtian hadn't given her any holy water or medicinal pills, yet she was completely healed. Furthermore, the netherworld ghost flame didn't have the self-healing abilities of evil spirits. Before long, Yang Dingtian discovered the reason. It was because of the blue water at the bottom of the lake. This miraculous blue water allowed him to recover from his injuries. At that time, it was this pool of blue water that allowed the illusory spirit demon mother to escape the calamity of the Naga Empire, and also escape the destruction of the ancient Great Nirvana. This blue water was extremely powerful and mysterious. Just what was it? Yang Dingtian picked up Dishi Bian who was in the water. She opened her eyes and slowly woke up. She gently struggled free and floated in the water. You're done. We'll leave in a while. I'll study this mysterious blue water, Yang Dingtian said. As for Dishi Bian, She just stared straight at Yang Dingtian. You, what are you doing? Yang Dingtian was stunned. Chapter 805. Yang Dingtian. I don't think I should go, Dishi Bian suddenly said. Why? Yang Dingtian was surprised. Dishi Bian said, I feel that if I go, I won't be able to help you. Instead, I'll be a burden. Yang Dingtian said, but your breakthrough to half-saint is also very important. Then I'll use my own method to cultivate. Also, I think it's impossible for me to break through to half-saint in a short time. Dishi Bian said, I've thought about it. At the border of the abyss, you can barely protect yourself. But if you have to divert your attention to protect me, you'll definitely be in danger. Did Emoji say something to you? Yang Dingtian asked. Dishi Bian said, that's not important. What's important is that I've already decided. It's more advantageous for you to go alone. Are you sure? Yang Dingtian asked. I'm sure, Dishi Bian said. I'll stay behind and protect the people in Cloud Sky City while cultivating. Yang Dingtian sighed deeply and then nodded. Then he flew directly in the direction of the north. The so-called border of the abyss was at the end of the world. North, south, east, and west all had ends. And the end of the South Sea had been explored by evil ways. Yang Dingtian still had many choices, but there was only one choice in his mind. That was the north of the snowy north. Why did he choose there? Because Master Dongfang Nini, in order to find the ultimate secret of the world, kept going north, 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 north. Then, someone was afraid that he would discover something. So they destroyed his cultivation and imprisoned him in the ice and snow for more than 10 years. Why was his master imprisoned? He must have almost discovered something. Who imprisoned him? Evil ways, or the so-called god of chaos. No matter who it was, there must be a secret at the end of the snowy north. Therefore, Yang Dingtian didn't choose the border of the abyss that he knew, but went directly north. Yang Dingtian had the thought of returning to the world of ice and snow for a very long time. At that time, when his master, Dongfang Minmi, was imprisoned, his cultivation should have been around the 9-star Grandmaster level. Because at that time, in the human countries, except for Wolingzi, who had completely retreated from the world, his cultivation was the highest. Therefore, he was called the number 1 in the world. As for whether he had reached 9-star or 9th grade Grandmaster level, Yang Dingtian didn't know. His master had never mentioned it. But at that time, his master had already cultivated to cultivate to cultivate to cultivate. But he didn't cultivate to 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 cultivate TS. But because Master once knew that the profound vein essence was in the yin-yang mirror, but it had already been taken away by Peony. And all these years, he had been extremely busy, so he had no time to look for the Xian vein essence, nor did he have time to cultivate his sword soul. At this time, Yang Dingtian's cultivation should be about the same as Dongfang Minmi, when he had a sword soul at his peak, or maybe a little stronger. At that time, his master went to explore the top secret in the north, was crippled of his martial arts, and then imprisoned in the snowy north. What about Yang Dingtian? Would he repeat the same mistake? Yang Dingtian rode the demon eagle king, Azeo, and kept going north, north, north. In just 10 hours, he had already reached the edge of the snowy north. Yang Dingtian patted Azeo and said, Okay Azeo, you go back. Remember, don't play with Bao Bao in Cloud Sky City every day. You have to go to Zhongjing often to perform official duties, okay? Also, many demon eagles have cultivated in the Forbidden Continent's illusion, and many female demon eagles have become very powerful, barely worthy of you. When I come back, if you haven't found a partner, then I will castrate you. Anyway, it's useless to keep you. The demon eagle king, Azeo, was really sad and reluctant, but when it heard Yang Dingtian's last words, it suddenly shuddered, and its whole body suddenly shrank. Castrate that's too scary. Otherwise, it might as well just close its eyes and find a female to make do with. Anyway, at night, when the eyes are closed and the lights are turned off, all females are about the same. Alright, let's go back. Yang Dingtian rubbed its neck. Azeo rubbed against his body reluctantly, then flapped its wings and flew in the direction of Cloud Sky City. Yang Dingtian just told it not to go back to Cloud Sky City to play with Bao Bao. But it turned around and went to Cloud Sky City instead of Zhongjing. After Azeo left, Yang Dingtian landed in the snowy north. In front of him was the endless snowy north, and behind him was the cold belt forest. At that time, when Yang Dingtian left the snowy north, he almost collapsed. It was when he saw this forest that his will was rekindled. The world of ice and snow in front of them was still a vast expanse of white as far as the eye could see. It was as if nothing had changed in 10,000 years. Yang Dingtian did not fly in the air, but walked on the ground. And his first goal was the glacier cave that he had passed through at that time. He walked faster and faster, faster and faster. In the end, it was as fast as lightning. At this time, the sun was shining brightly in the sky. The sun shone on the ice and snow, looking incomparably dazzling. 2 hours later, Yang Dingtian ran more than 2,000 miles. Suddenly, dark clouds pressed down, the wind whistled and fist-sized snowflakes smashed down. Nearly 6 years ago, Yang Dingtian had to dig a deep cave to hide in when encountering such a snowstorm. But now this snowstorm was not even a tickle for Yang Dingtian. He hurried through the snowstorm. Another 10 hours passed. The sky cleared up again, and the sun shone again. After another 10 hours of walking, Yi Zichen walked on. Finally, Yang Dingtian returned to the place where he came to this world. Of course, this was only a very, very approximate location. The reason why Yang Dingtian did not fly, but walked was that he followed the route from 6 years ago. Of course, Yang Dingtian wasn't able to walk in a straight line at that time. Furthermore, this place was filled with endless ice and snow. There weren't any points of reference or any distinctive features. Therefore, Yang Dingtian could only roughly determine that he was in this area. The range was about 100 miles, or perhaps the error was greater. Yang Dingtian flew in the air, trying to find the cave after passing through. But it was too difficult. After 6 years of snow and ice, all traces had been buried by the strong wind. However, there might still be some traces, because his master, Dongfang Minmi, detonated his energy reserve and blew up a large cave thousands of meters below. Although this cave would be buried by snow, it was not a glacier after all, so it was not that strong. On the jade stone, Yang Dingtian pulled out his emperor-grade soul sword and stabbed it into the ice and snow. The boundless energy of a martial grandmaster suddenly burst forth. Boom! Suddenly, the glacier within a radius of dozens of miles seemed to have been hit by an earthquake. It shook violently, and then countless cracks appeared. However, there was no collapse. It could be seen that it was not here. Yang Dingtian flew dozens of miles and stabbed the emperor-grade soul sword again, bursting with profound qi. Suddenly, all the ice ships within dozens of miles were once again hit by an incomparably powerful shock. Still nothing. A total of 5 times. When Yang Dingtian detonated the ice ship, countless cracks tore open, and then rumbled. A huge cave collapsed more than 10 miles to the west. Yang Dingtian immediately flew over. That's right, it was here. Because at a glance Yang Dingtian saw a rag. He didn't know if it was Yang Dingtian's or his master, Dongfang Minmi. At that time, the cave where his master was imprisoned was here. And the place where Yang Dingtian transmigrated was also here. Yang Dingtian jumped into the depths of the cave. Boom, boom, boom. Using the terrifying high temperature of the million-spirit demon fire, the snow inside was completely evaporated in an instant. Immediately, this place was completely restored to its original appearance. It was almost exactly the same as when Yang Dingtian transmigrated. His master, Dongfang Minmi, detonated his sea of qi, but did not destroy the shape of this cave. This was impossible, right? Or it had once again returned to its original appearance. Yang Dingtian tried to find his master's skeleton and then take it away. However, it was obviously impossible. At that time, his master was completely smashed into pieces, and there was no trace of him. The only thing that could be found was a lot of torn clothes and a dozen strands of hair. Yang Dingtian collected these things and put them into the space ring. Then, he carefully explored this cave to see if there were any energy fluctuations. No, it was a very normal ice cave. Yang Dingtian directly used his treasure sword to dig down, easily breaking the ice, and continued to dig deeper. 100 meters, 500 meters, 1,000 meters. It was all ice, and there was nothing special. After taking one last look at the ice cave that he had transmigrated from, Yang Dingtian suddenly flew out, quickly flying towards the north. After that, he continued to use flying mystic skills, and not running on land. He flew towards the north, and kept flying, and kept flying. He continued to fly for 10,000 miles, 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles, 40,000 miles. Still, it was a boundless land of ice and snow, and there was nothing else. It was as if it was endless. Yang Dingtian had been flying for a few days and nights. Midway, he stopped twice to recover his mystic chi, because the further north he went, the lower the temperature, and it was actually the same temperature as the unfreezing water. And here, it was completely no longer snowing, and there was no wind. Yang Dingtian could no longer fly, and could only land, because the temperature here had already dropped below the unfreezing water. The air here was even liquid nitrogen, liquid oxygen, and so on. At this time, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to use a large amount of mystic chi to maintain the temperature in his body. And he could only maintain the speed of running. This wasn't even a big deal. As he continued to go north, the temperature was still dropping. Thus, Yang Dingtian saw an unprecedented spectacle. He saw the entire solid world. The air in the air had completely solidified. At this time, it should already be more than 200 degrees below zero. A normal 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmaster would not be able to withstand it. Yang Dingtian had mystic fire, 9 Yang mystic veins, and unlimited cultivation of a Great Grandmaster. Only then could he barely survive in such an extreme environment. Thus Yang Dingtian held a treasure sword and continued to break the ice, forward and forward. Every 800 miles, he had to stop to recover his mystic chi. But there was good news. The mystic chi energy here was actually very, very rich. It was as if the mystic chi accumulated over the years had been frozen into the air. Just like that, Yang Dingtian continued to go north and break the ice. The temperature was getting lower and lower. In the end, Yang Dingtian had to consume a large amount of mystic chi to maintain the temperature of his entire body. Moreover, the consumption of elixirs was like running water. The speed of his advance went from 800 miles per day to 500 miles, to 300 miles, to 200 miles, to 100 miles. Just like that, Yang Dingtian continued to move forward. The temperature continued to drop. In the end, the terrible cold even directly froze Yang Dingtian's thoughts. It made him completely forget about the time, and could only break the ice and go north. Until suddenly one day, his energy suddenly trembled, and his entire body sank into nothingness for a short period of time. Then Queen Poisa desperately woke him up. Otherwise, he would have really died in the extreme cold. He actually broke through, and went from an unlimited Great Grandmaster to an even higher level. Just like that, he kept breaking the ice and going north. After the breakthrough, Yang Dingtian was slightly excited, and continued to break the ice and go north. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days. He didn't know how long it had been. Later, the temperature had reached a level that Yang Dingtian couldn't bear. His daily speed was no more than 5 miles. The mystic chi in his body was barely enough to maintain his own life. If he still couldn't find the exit, Yang Dingtian only had 2 ways. The first way was to turn back and give up on this direction. The second way was to wake up Naga Shuang and keep warm with her as they continued to go north. Yang Dingtian continued to go north, 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 north. Halfway through, his energy cultivation broke through 2 more times. He still went from an unlimited Great Grandmaster to an even higher level. However, only God knew how many times he had to break through to become a half-saint. But now, Yang Dingtian really understood what an unlimited Great Grandmaster meant. Although they were both 9-star and 9th grade Great Grandmasters, the current Yang Dingtian was much more powerful than the previous Yang Dingtian. Perhaps Wu Yuming had been in this kind of limitless martial grandmaster back then. Yang Dingtian's critical point soon came, because his mystic chi was already difficult to maintain his life, and could no longer support him to go forward. If he went forward, he would directly put his life in danger. Now he could either turn back or wake up Naga Shuang. However, Yang Dingtian didn't want to choose either, because he felt that there might be a pair of eyes watching him. If he woke up Naga Shuang, his biggest secret would be exposed, and it would lead to unimaginable consequences. However, he was extremely unwilling to turn around and go back. He was going to risk his life and risk it all. Therefore, Yang Dingtian gritted his teeth. He directly summoned the mystic fire, and used the terrible heat to maintain his body's warmth, and continued to break the ice. This time his speed was very, very fast. However, the consumption of mystic chi was also extremely fast. He was really gambling with his life. Yang Dingtian flew north and advanced quickly. The mystic chi energy was being consumed crazily. If he didn't succeed, he would die trying. Finally, his mystic chi was about to be exhausted, and the mystic fire was about to be extinguished. There was still no end in front of him. If he were to be trapped here, he would definitely die. It was impossible for him to even turn around and go back now. His mystic chi couldn't support him. Then the only way was to wake up Naga. No, Yang Dingtian didn't want to. He firmly believed that there must be a pair of eyes watching him at this time. Either he died or he succeeded. Yang Dingtian used the last bit of mystic chi and rushed forward. Boom! After the mystic chi exploded, it was completely extinguished. Yang Dingtian's mystic chi was completely exhausted. Then, like a wild beast that had broken free from its cage, he roared desperately. He succeeded. This was the end of the northern world, the real end. Behind it was the ancient wonder, the entire world that was completely frozen and solidified. And in front of it was the bizarre and mysterious abyss border. There was nothing. There was only a ball of light and shadow, a distorted light and shadow. It was like an infinite galaxy, but also like a distorted hell. Countless lightning bolts burst out in the light and shadow. This was the abyss border, the end of the entire world. Anyone who fell into the abyss border would be completely lost in the endless energy abyss. Yang Dingtian knew that no one could pass through the abyss border, and the void-splitting fire was the product of the entire continent after it died. The void-splitting fire was, to a large extent, an alternative manifestation of the abyss border. Therefore, with the void-splitting fire, he should be able to pass through the abyss border. Then, how should he pass through? Chapter 806. The abyss border in front of him could be said to be endless. Moreover, there was an extremely complicated energy field inside. Yang Dingtian grabbed a piece of ice and threw it directly toward the abyss border. Instantly, the ice and snow disappeared. This kind of disappearance did not mean that it went anywhere, but that it was directly turned into ashes. In fact, one level higher than that would be completely turned into the most primitive form of energy. In other words, after a person went down, he would not even be considered dead. He would be directly decomposed into nothingness, leaving nothing behind. Moreover, anything that went down would be completely decomposed. At this time, Yang Dingtian really did not dare to take the risk and directly jump down. Although at the critical moment, he would definitely not be afraid. But at this time, jumping down was not courage but idiocy. This was the border between two worlds, where there was the most powerful energy. If he jumped down, he would definitely be turned into ashes. He would not even have the treatment of death. Yang Dingtian gradually calmed down and sat down cross-legged. Strangely, it was no longer cold here, but there was no feeling at all. It was not cold, nor was it hot. Yang Dingtian swallowed the chi-gathering pill and began to recover his battle chi. Half an hour later, Yang Dingtian was completely recovered. Since the void-splitting fire was the highest product of the abyss border, then the next step was to see how the void-splitting fire performed. Yang Dingtian ran his chi and released the void-splitting fire. Of course, he did not directly create a space door, but just used a small void-splitting fire to enter the abyss border to try. A white void-splitting fire was slowly released, and then under Yang Dingtian's control, it floated into the abyss border. As expected, the void-splitting fire did not turn into ashes. Not only did it not turn into ashes, but it was also crazily devouring the energy of the entire abyss border. After devouring, the void-splitting fire began to split. A white flame split into a black one. Then it continued to devour and split. 1 flower, 2 flowers, 4 flowers, 8 flowers, 16 flowers. In the blink of an eye, the entire abyss border in front of Yang Dingtian was completely filled with black and white flames. There were thousands of them. Then, exactly like what he saw before, these void-splitting fires began to merge. All of the flames became transparent again. Jade. The entire border of the abyss had turned into a transparent crystal. It looked incomparably beautiful and resplendent. But what should he do now? Was he going to jump down? Yang Dingtian was still very careful as he pinched an ice ball and threw it down. This time, the ice and snow did not disintegrate. Instead, it continued to fall, and finally disappeared. Yang Dingtian understood that the other use of the void crack fire was to allow people to travel back and forth between the first world, the second world, and the third world. They could pass through any abyss border. Moreover, Yang Dingtian's void-rending flame came from the most powerful death continent, so it was of the highest grade. As long as the void-rending flame reached the edge of the abyss, it would devour all the energy here. Then, it would transform the incomparably terrifying edge of the abyss into nothingness. This way, any object that entered would not be directly decomposed. From the looks of it, the spatial rending flame was indeed extremely heaven-defying. It was even to the extent that it was completely different from the profound flames, and even the nether ghost flames. This was a truly world-class energy product. Then what about the chaos spirit flame that was ranked first? He really did not know. Its degree of heaven-defying might have already exceeded the scope of Yang Dingtian's understanding. Yang Dingtian took a deep breath and directly jumped down toward the transparent crystal-like edge of the abyss. Phew! As expected, he was safe and sound. The entire process was very strange. It was as if he had fallen into a time tunnel. Everything around him was transparent crystal-like light and shadow. There was nothing. Yang Dingtian felt as though he was constantly falling, but he also felt as though he was constantly advancing. Because the surroundings were completely nothingness, there was no front, back, left, or right at all. In short, Yang Dingtian kept falling and falling. Yang Dingtian did not wear a watch. If he did, he would realize that the hands of the watch would not move at this time, because there was no concept of time when traveling through the abyss border. It seemed to be an instant, but also seemed to be a very, very long time. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian directly passed through the entire almost infinite border and rushed into a completely unfamiliar world. This was a completely unfamiliar world. Phew! Then, this crystal-like void-splitting fire began to condense quickly. In the end, it became void-splitting fire again, and it was transparent. It directly drilled into Yang Dingtian's chi-si. In an instant. Boom! Yang Dingtian only felt his chi-si tremble violently. His entire consciousness completely fell into nothingness. His sea of energy trembled once again, indicating that he had made another breakthrough. He broke through from an infinite great master to an even higher infinite great master. At this time, Yang Dingtian's concept of martial arts and the concept of breaking through was completely subverted. In such a short period of time, he had already broken through 3 times. But he was still an infinite great master. As for how many more breakthroughs he needed to break through to the half-saint level, only God knew. Now Yang Dingtian was really curious. How did Wolingzi break through to the half-saint level? It was not scientific. Now, with the objective conditions of the chaotic world, it was very difficult to break through to the half-saint level. No wonder it was called an infinite great master. If one did not come to nirvana, it was basically an infinite great master, and it would continue to be an infinite great master. When he opened his eyes again, Yang Dingtian had the opportunity to see this new world. Was this the second world or the third world? He did not know. In short, this was a world that was gradually dying. Perhaps it was the third world, because it was bordered by the human countries. Then, according to reason, the ruins of the Naga Empire and the ancient martial arts civilization should be in this world. Yang Dingtian carefully explored this world. This kind of exploration was very difficult, because it was practically pitch black, Even with Yang Dingtian's cultivation, he was only able to see a range of less than a dozen meters. At least what he saw now was a pile of stones, and they were black stones. Of course, there was no air in the air, let alone oxygen. Moreover, there was no xianqi, not even a little bit of xianqi energy. In other words, it was impossible to absorb xianqi here. Then if he wanted to go deep into this world, he could only rely on elixirs, an almost endless supply of elixirs. And Yang Dingtian had brought an almost endless supply of elixirs. Now he was the supreme leader of the humans. Even if it was the highest grade of elixirs, he could have an inexhaustible supply. Yang Dingtian held a spiritual energy elixir in his mouth, and then slowly went deep into this world. After walking for a few hundred meters, he did not find anything. There were no mountains, no houses, only endless stones and not even soil. Then, Yang Dingtian noticed that the gravitational field here was slightly different. Although the gravitational field was not high, it was definitely different from the human countries. Moreover, there was no life, no plants, and no water. As for the sky, it was completely dark, and there was not even a little extra color. Yang Dingtian understood why this place was called the Dark Realm, because it only had one color, and that was eternal black. If the third world was already so dark, then the second world, and the first world would undoubtedly be even darker. Yang Dingtian tried flying mystic techniques. No, he could not fly, because there was no air in this world. Of course, Yang Dingtian could still fly if he wanted to. He could directly spit out Xian fire, and in a completely vacuum environment, the flying speed would be incomparably shocking. But in that case, the consumption of xianqi would also be incomparably shocking. In this completely unfamiliar world, Yang Dingtian felt that it was safer to explore carefully and preserve xianqi. Just like this, Yang Dingtian went deeper, 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 stone, 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 black stone. There was almost only one thing in this world, and that was stone, and it was completely black. But, according to Demon Fury II, the Dark Realm was a place that high-level martial artists in Little Western Paradise had to go to cultivate, and it was the only place to break through the half-saint and saint level. But in front of him, how did it look like a place to cultivate? There was no xianqi, no demon beasts, no life. Yang Dingtian went on and on like this. Just when he thought that he was going to go on endlessly like this, suddenly, the sky lit up, and then the sun rose. Yang Dingtian was stunned. So there was a sun. There was actually a sun in the Dark Realm, and it was not completely dark. It was really strange. After the sun rose, the whole world was bright. At this time, Yang Dingtian saw clearly that this was an almost solidified world, and there were endless stones everywhere. When it was black, under the illumination of the sun, these black stones also reflected a dazzling light. Although it was a little dazzling, it was better than at night. But within a few hundred miles, there was really no mountain, no life, not even a little protruding thing. Immediately, Yang Dingtian felt that something was wrong, because it was getting brighter and brighter, brighter and brighter. In the end, he was almost completely blind, because later on, the light had exceeded the normal sun by 10 times, 100 times, and even more. As a result, nothing could be seen in this world except for the bright light. Even compared to the darkness, he could not see anything. It was really a kind of irony. When the light reached the extreme, it was even more blinding than the darkness. Yang Dingtian did not dare to open his eyes, and even closed them directly. He could not bear it anymore, and still had to wear a thick eye mask. However, the bad situation was not over yet, because the surrounding temperature was getting higher and higher, higher and higher, and higher and higher. It was so high that Yang Dingtian could not bear it at all. 100 degrees, 200 degrees, 300 degrees, 400 degrees, 500 degrees. In the end, the rock under Yang Dingtian's feet became sticky and melted. Thus, the whole world became a boiling quagmire. It had not reached the point of magma, but these stones had already begun to melt. No wonder this world could not see anything, not even soil. Because everything was melted by the sun. Why was the sun here so terrifyingly hot? Of course, without the atmosphere, if the sun shone directly, the temperature would undoubtedly be very high. But on Earth, even if there was no atmosphere, the temperature would not rise to nearly 1,000 degrees. For such a bad situation, Yang Dingtian was prepared. He was wearing the demon spirit black armor, the demon spirit mist cloak, and the shoes on his feet were specially made of special energy nephrite, with heavenly devil silk inside. This kind of energy nephrite could temporarily withstand the high temperature of nearly 1,000 degrees. However, Yang Dingtian's body had already completely relied on releasing ice profound qi to lower the temperature and maintain his life. This place was a little similar to the second world of the Forbidden Continent's illusion, but not very similar. And the most fundamental difference was that this place was completely real. Therefore, when the sun was shining wildly, Yang Dingtian did nothing, because there was no anti-gravity here, and no one forced him to pass. Yang Dingtian stood in place, using profound qi to resist the scorching heat. Just like that, after the sun shone for more than 10 hours, it fell. The whole world was completely dark. The temperature dropped sharply. Soon, the melted stone slurry began to solidify into stone. The temperature kept falling. In the end, it stopped at about -80 degrees. This temperature might be unbearable for others, but for Yang Dingtian, it was nothing. He quickly sat down cross-legged, took a profound qi gathering pill, and began to recover his profound qi. Yang Dingtian finally understood that this world traveled at night and rested during the day. Half an hour later, Yang Dingtian recovered his battle profound qi. Then he held another spiritual qi pill and continued on his way. Here, it was a flat land without any obstacles, and there were no life forms, so there was almost no danger. Yang Dingtian continued to travel. However, many times, what he thought was the truth might not be the truth. Suddenly, dozens of miles ahead, something slowly crawled out of the ground. Its entire body was completely black, so its shape could not be seen clearly. The only thing that could be seen was a pair of blood-red eyes. It was about less than a meter tall, and after crawling out, it began to move aimlessly. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. It moved very quickly but not as fast as the demon spirit. This was the life form of the Dark Realm? This was the first life form that Yang Dingtian had seen. Sure enough, it was not a normal life form, but an energy life form, an elemental life form. Suddenly, this elemental life form discovered the existence of Yang Dingtian, and then rushed over like lightning. The distance of dozens of miles was covered in the blink of an eye. Then, it opened its mouth wide and pounced over. Yang Dingtian had almost no time to react, and directly blasted out a bolt of devil sky-splitting lightning. Bang! Instantly, this elemental life form was shattered into pieces. It was probably at the level of a beginner great grandmaster. After this elemental life form turned into ashes, it suddenly condensed into a bright green light in the air, and then quickly dissipated. In the process of dissipating, Yang Dingtian felt an incomparably rich energy. Yang Dingtian immediately grabbed it. This was actually an extremely rich energy, and it was actually energy that could be directly devoured. Yang Dingtian tried to open the entrance of his profound vein to devour this energy. Without any hindrance, it all poured into Yang Dingtian's profound vein, and finally into his qi. Although it was not pure profound qi energy, but it seemed that this energy level was higher. Profound qi energy had to be picked and refined continuously, and the energy condensed after this elemental life form died was directly devoured, and there was no loss. This was too awesome, too heaven-defying. In the human countries, there was no such energy body. Now Yang Dingtian finally understood how to cultivate in the Dark Realm. It was completely killing elemental life forms, and then directly devouring their energy. No wonder this was the only way to break through to the half-saint realm. If he continued to devour like this, as long as there were enough elemental life forms, he could really devour and upgrade to the half-saint realm. However, in this way, it was no different from the Naga's cultivation. At this moment, Shuang-Er was completely relying on devouring other people's energy to upgrade. However, she was even more heaven-defying and could directly devour any life form. But in this way, a way to cultivate quickly appeared in front of Yang Dingtian. Find elemental life forms, kill them, and then devour them. There was no more direct way to cultivate and break through than this. Chapter 807. In the following period of time, Yang Dingtian was not in a hurry to travel. Instead, he opened his eyes wide and searched for elemental creatures here. For safety's sake, Yang Dingtian even began to turn invisible and carefully search around. Hopefully, these elemental creatures could not see him in the dark domain. Yang Dingtian searched all the way and found that elemental creatures were really rare. He did not find a second one for hundreds of miles. It was as if the elemental creature just now was a coincidence. Just like that, he continued to move forward. After 10 hours, Yang Dingtian found a second elemental creature. At this time, he did not say anything and directly flashed over. A devil sky-splitting lightning struck it to death. Then, he once again harvested the energy of a great grandmaster and swallowed it immediately. It still caused a slight vibration in his energy reserve, and then there was no reaction. Yang Dingtian suddenly felt that he should not devour like this. Instead, he should accumulate it and then devour it all at once. The effect might be better this way. Yang Dingtian decided that the next time he hunted for elemental energy essence, he would accumulate it first. However, that was the end of tonight's harvest, because the sky was soon bright, and the sun was about to come out. In an instant, the entire world became completely bright, so bright that it was almost blinding. Yang Dingtian had no choice but to cover his eyes again, and use his Xian Qi to release ice energy to maintain his body temperature. Then, the sun once again roasted the entire world until it melted. The entire dark world became extremely bright. Then, the entire ground began to melt again, turning into incomparably hot stone lava. However, this time, Yang Dingtian did not stand in place and wait. Instead, he began to move forward with difficulty, because this was not the illusory realm of the taboo continent, and there was no anti-gravity. It was very easy to walk. Yang Dingtian only needed to look at the bottom of his feet and input ice Xian Qi. Then with every step he took, the stone lava there would freeze. Just like that, in broad daylight, Yang Dingtian also slowly moved forward, looking for elemental creatures. Logically speaking, if there were elemental creatures at night, there should also be elemental creatures during the day. At least there should be fire-type creatures. Yang Dingtian continued to move forward. Although he could not open his eyes, he could release countless wraiths to sense everything around him. There really was. Yang Dingtian had only walked less than 15 kilometers when he sensed a wave of fluctuations from the vengeful spirit. Next, he felt an intense tremor. Finally, he heard a roar. This was a vacuum, so sound waves should not be transmitted. However, Yang Dingtian did hear a roar. Perhaps this elemental creature directly transmitted the sound with energy. Yang Dingtian carefully narrowed his eyes. Suddenly, not far ahead, lava shot out in all directions, and a huge flaming man suddenly crawled out. That's right. Its entire body was made of burning stones. Only its 2 eyes and its waving arms made it clear that it was alive. What was this, a fire elemental stone man? Yang Dingtian knew that it was not that there were no elemental life forms during the day, but that they were all hiding in the magma and devouring energy. They would only appear when the enemy approached. This fire-type stone golem was more than 10 meters tall. It was heading straight for Yang Dingtian. With a roar, its gigantic body came crashing down with a whistling sound. Before it even got close, Yang Dingtian felt the astonishing temperature, which was at least tens of thousands of degrees. Boom! Its huge burning fist suddenly bombarded Yang Dingtian. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian quickly flashed and dodged its attack. Boom! It rushed over again and spat out flames at Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian was stunned. The fire-type stone golem, which was more than 10 meters tall, actually spat out flames with a diameter of thousands of meters. The temperature at the edge had reached tens of thousands of degrees. This fire-type stone golem didn't seem to have reached the half-saint level, but it was so powerful. Yang Dingtian couldn't watch anymore. He suddenly struck down with the devil sky-splitting lightning. The devil sky-splitting lightning wasn't the most powerful for Yang Dingtian, but it was the fastest. It was completely unleashed in seconds. Boom! The huge lightning struck the fire-type stone golem hard. It trembled violently, then it stopped in place, and then its whole body trembled violently. It was fine, but it seemed to be very, very comfortable. Lightning energy ignored any defense. However, this stone golem was an insulator. Therefore, no matter how powerful Yang Dingtian's devil sky-splitting lightning was, it was useless. After feeling comfortable, it roared again and rushed towards Yang Dingtian. Standing in place, Yang Dingtian tried the flaming blade mystic skill and slashed out. Whoosh! A bright flame energy blade suddenly shot towards the fire-type stone golem. With this flame energy blade, even a 9-star 9th grade grandmaster would be killed by Yang Dingtian. As a result, the fire-type stone golem suddenly opened its mouth and directly swallowed the mystic skill energy. The fire-type energy had no effect on it. Using the fire-type energy to attack was equivalent to putting out a fire. Understood, Yang Dingtian said with a smile. He reversed yin and yang, and a sword light fiercely slashed out. Ice-type energy, incomparably powerful ice-type energy, instantly slashed at the fire-type stone golem. Gotcha! In an instant, the arrogant fire-type stone golem was directly frozen. The flames all over its body were completely extinguished, turning into a blue icicle. Then, Yang Dingtian flashed and rushed over, swishing his sword a few times. Pa! The frozen stone golem was instantly shattered into pieces. Then, a fiery red energy essence floated in the air. Yang Dingtian immediately took it down, but did not directly devour it. Instead, he put it in the energy jade box and accumulated it. Then, Yang Dingtian continued to move forward. 4 hours later, he encountered another fire-type stone golem. Yang Dingtian easily used the ice sword light to kill it instantly. As a result, he collected another Grandmaster-level energy essence. Just like this, Yang Dingtian stared at the scorching sun as he advanced. Until it was dark, he had hunted down 5 Grandmaster-level fire-type stone golems and collected 5 Grandmaster-level energy essences. He decided to wait until he collected 10 before devouring them together. After nightfall, Yang Dingtian did not immediately look for elemental creatures to hunt. Instead, he began to make sunglasses. That's right, sunglasses. Because there were more elemental creatures during the day, the harvest was more fruitful. However, the sun was only bright. Yang Dingtian hunted elemental monsters with his eyes closed. It was very inconvenient and dangerous. If he had sunglasses, it would be much better. There were many crystal stones in his space ring, many of which were colored and transparent crystal stones. As long as he ground out 2 lenses, it would be enough. Soon he found 2 brown-colored crystal stones. Of course, this kind of crystal stone was very, very hard. Generally speaking, it could not be ground. However, Yang Dingtian had a soul sword close to the emperor grade. Using it to cut the crystal stone was probably no different from cutting wood. With ease, Yang Dingtian used his sword to cut out 2 pieces of sunglasses. When he put it in front of his eyes, he realized that he could not see it at all. It was a completely distorted and bizarre image. Although Yang Dingtian had cut the surface of the lens very smoothly and completely, the inside of the crystal stone was still very strange and complicated. It was unknown how many sides there were, so it was impossible to pass through parallel light. Yang Dingtian rummaged through the other crystal stones. All of them were the same. Whether it was the demon core or the crystal stone, the inside was very complicated. However, Yang Dingtian still had a way. He floated the 2 lenses in the air. Then he used the million spirit demon fire to burn them. However, he had to control the temperature well. He could not let it burn directly, nor could he let it turn into ashes. Instead, he had to let it melt into a liquid. Yang Dingtian carefully controlled the temperature. From 1000 degrees to 2000 degrees, 3000 degrees, the crystal stone still did not move. When it reached 5300 degrees, it began to gradually change shape. Yang Dingtian carefully increased the temperature. Finally, when it reached 395 degrees, the crystal stone completely melted. The 2 crystal shards had completely melted as Yang Dingtian used his mystic qi to float in the air. Then, Yang Dingtian used his qi to bombard the melted crystal stone into the shape of a lens again. Finally, he used his ice-cold qi to bombard it. In an instant, the melted crystal stone directly solidified. Yang Dingtian held it in his hand and used his X-ray vision to see through the two lenses. Perfect. Extremely perfect. It was absolutely first-rate transparent. There was no deformation at all. Because there was a complete vacuum here. There was not even a speck of dust. Finally, Yang Dingtian melted a piece of bloody black gold to make a lens frame. Then, he mounted the lens on the lens frame. A perfect pair of sunglasses was made. He used a scorching sun crystal as the lens and bloody black gold as the lens frame. Such a pair of sunglasses would definitely be sold for a sky-high price on Earth. It would be more than a few million. Yang Dingtian put it on. Then, he lit up the darkness with his qi and took out a mirror to look at it. It was so cool. For some reason, Yang Dingtian didn't stop his attack. Instead, he used the remaining crystals to continue making sunglasses. In the end, he made a total of 10 pairs. He made one for each of his wives in Cloud Sky City. Then, he made one for each of his babies. Previously, Yang Dingtian had never brought a gift when he went on a long journey. This time, he came to the Dark Realm and finally encountered a vacuum environment. He would bring back a cool gift. After wearing it for a while, Yang Dingtian reluctantly took it off and put it into the space ring. Then, he continued to look for elemental life in the Dark Realm at night. Just like that, Yang Dingtian groped and searched in the darkness. After a full 10 hours, he did not find anything. It seemed that there were very few elemental life forms at night in the Dark Realm. Last night, Yang Dingtian had 2 gains. Tonight he did not find anything. The sky was about to brighten. Bang! 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 At this moment, Yang Dingtian suddenly felt the ground tremble. However, it was so dark that he could not see where the elemental life forms were. Yang Dingtian immediately stood on the spot and didn't move. Then the ground was still trembling. This was the footsteps of an elemental life form. This elemental life form must be very, very huge. Bang, bang, bang. The ground trembled more and more. That huge life form was getting closer and closer to Yang Dingtian. But Yang Dingtian still could not see it. Because its entire body was black, and it had completely merged with the entire Dark Realm. Unless it opened its eyes, Yang Dingtian would not be able to see it. Of course, Yang Dingtian could also use the occult fire to illuminate it. However, using the occult fire to illuminate it at this time was undoubtedly an act of suicide. It was getting closer and closer. Yang Dingtian could already feel its incomparably powerful aura. Because when it walked over, the pressure of the aura was like Mount Tai pressing down on him. Half-saint level. It was definitely an elemental life form above the half-saint level. Yang Dingtian had a headache. It turned out that there was no gain tonight because of this thing. Either there was no gain, or there was such a huge one. Perhaps it was the overlord of the surrounding area. Once it appeared, all the elemental life forms did not dare to show their faces. If he successfully hunted it and obtained its energy essence, it might bring about a huge breakthrough. However, the most important thing was how to kill it. An infinite great master would only be killed instantly if he encountered an elite above the half-saint level. At this moment, suddenly, that elemental life form suddenly opened its eyes. Swoosh! Just one eye was bigger than Yang Dingtian's body. Moreover, this pair of eyes was staring at Yang Dingtian. Suddenly Yang Dingtian shuddered. Chapter 808. Then the elemental beast suddenly opened its big mouth. How big was this mouth? It was nearly 10 meters wide, and a ball of blue lightning was brewing inside. Through the light of this lightning, Yang Dingtian saw its mouth full of terrifying sharp teeth, and then an incomparably huge body. How big was this body? It was about 70 to 80 meters long and 30 meters tall. The whole shape was very familiar. It was the Millennium Owl that Yang Dingtian had seen before. Its back was full of barbs, its body was thin and long, its wings were huge, and its claws were sharp like knives. Yang Dingtian immediately relaxed. So it was a Millennium Owl. He had killed and subdued one of these things. It was not a problem at all. However, in the secret realm of the City of Despair, the highest cultivation among the 5 people was only at the master stage, and they still killed a Millennium Owl. Of course, at that time, the Millennium Owl was trapped in the first trial room and could not chase after them. However, now that young Dingtian was an infinite great master, dealing with a Millennium Owl should not be a problem. At this time, the Millennium Owl in front of him had finished brewing. It directly spat out an incomparably huge ball of lightning at young Dingtian. However, just as it spat out the lightning, young Dingtian had already flashed and jumped directly onto the Millennium Owl's body. Young Dingtian was very clear about how to kill a Millennium Owl. He leaped onto its gigantic head and stabbed his near-emperor-grade soul sword into its eye socket. The first thing to do to kill a Millennium Owl was to blind its eyes. Moreover, the Millennium Owl's body was too huge, so it was relatively inflexible. Young Dingtian had the demonic spirit mist cloak, so he could easily stab its eyes. However, it did not have any reaction, nor did it scream. It was as if it did not feel anything. Young Dingtian forcefully stirred, but the Millennium Owl still did not show any signs of pain. At this time, the ball of lightning in its mouth was like an energy missile. It directly shot out hundreds of miles away, then hit the ground and exploded. In an instant, the darkness within hundreds of miles suddenly flashed. The night sky of several hundred miles was instantly filled with countless tiny lightning bolts. What's going on? Young Dingtian realized that stabbing the eyes of the owl was useless. However, he soon realized that although the monster in front of him was an owl, it was definitely not the owl young Dingtian had seen before. This owl was also an elemental life form. Its eyes were just a mass of energy, so it was impossible to blind it. Immediately after, young Dingtian discovered that the night owl's body was made of metal and not flesh. Previously, young Dingtian had seen two Millennium Owls. Although their shells were harder than steel, they were still made of flesh and had fresh blood. The one in front of him seemed to be made of energy other than steel. Furthermore, it hadn't reached the half-step sage level. Although it was much stronger than young Dingtian, it was still an unbounded grandmaster. This was because the level of the lightning ball it spat out was not as high as the mystic flame lightning that young Dingtian created with all his might. An unbounded grandmaster was indeed an unbounded grandmaster. Its energy essence must be very powerful. Young Dingtian suddenly picked up the near-emperor-grade soul sword and stabbed at the owl's head. The owl's entire body was made of metal and was extremely hard. Even an ordinary bloody black gold sword would find it difficult to stab it. However, it was not a problem for young Dingtian's near-emperor-grade soul sword. Although it was a little strenuous, he still stabbed the near-emperor-grade soul sword into the owl's head. At this moment, the owl that was struggling crazily suddenly stopped and stood motionless. Just when young Dingtian thought that he had succeeded, the owl suddenly continued to struggle crazily, as if the sword just now was nothing to it. Young Dingtian was really going crazy. He had been stabbed in the head, but it was still fine. This was an elemental life form. Thus, young Dingtian rode on its neck and slashed wildly. Suddenly, the near-emperor-grade soul sword left countless deep scars on the owl's head. However, this elemental owl didn't seem to be in any pain. However, it still angered it. It began to go berserk, and then rolled on the ground crazily, desperately using its wings to beat young Dingtian on top of its head. It tried to use physical methods to kill young Dingtian. However, young Dingtian had the demonic spirit mist cloak and flashed quickly. With the owl's huge body, it was purely a dream for it to hit young Dingtian. Thus, the owl changed its tactic and spat out lightning. However, in front of young Dingtian's demonic spirit mist cloak, its lightning couldn't hit him at all. Young Dingtian was like a ghost, constantly jumping and shuttling on its huge body. The owl ran crazily and rolled crazily, but it couldn't get young Dingtian up. Thus, the owl used its most powerful attack. Pa 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 pa, infinite lightning wall. A huge bolt of lightning that was thousands of square meters in size suddenly struck down from the sky, attacking this area indiscriminately. And young Dingtian immediately activated the demonic spirit fire energy shield. Although the owl in front of him was very close to the half-saint level, it was not a half-saint after all. If young Dingtian was directly hit by its lightning, he wouldn't be able to withstand it. However, this kind of indiscriminate attack The energy of the lightning wall of thousands of square meters was very scattered. If he was hit, it would at most be equivalent to the level of a 9-star 9th grade Great Grandmaster. Yang Dingtian's demonic spirit fire energy shield could easily block it. Sure enough, the endless lightning wall couldn't break through the demonic spirit fire energy shield with the continuous support of Yang Dingtian's qi. After crazily striking the lightning wall for half an hour, Yang Dingtian was still safe and sound. And this owl had spat out lightning thousands of times. At this time, the energy in its body was almost exhausted. Thus, it almost went berserk, continuing to roll crazily and flap its wings desperately. However, it couldn't do anything to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian couldn't do anything to it either. Yang Dingtian didn't know how to kill it at all. Its entire body had at least been slashed by Yang Dingtian thousands of times. It was full of wounds. However, it was useless at all. This elemental owl seemed to be impossible to kill. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian had an idea. He did as he said. He jumped down from the owl and stood in front of it motionless. The elemental owl was stunned. Just now, it had been tossing and turning for half the night. It had exhausted all its means, but this hateful little thing still refused to come down from its body. Now it actually came down of its own accord. It suddenly roared and slowly opened its mouth. Whoosh! A million spirits demonic fire. Whoosh! A demonic spirit demonic fire. Then, Yang Dingtian kept injecting qi into the two mystic fires. And the elemental owl was also constantly condensing lightning energy. It was going to release a fatal attack on Yang Dingtian. Although the mystic fire lightning was powerful, it was troublesome and time-consuming. After half a minute, Yang Dingtian finally injected 80% of his qi into the two mystic fires. At this time, the elemental owl was almost done condensing the ball of lightning in its stomach. This should be its last attack. It had condensed all its energy. This should be its greatest power as an infinity grandmaster owl. Whoosh! The two mystic fires of the chaos attribute suddenly entered the elemental owl's mouth and flew directly into its stomach. At the same time, the huge ball of lightning in the elemental owl's stomach suddenly blasted out. The two mystic fires controlled by Yang Dingtian violently collided with the elemental owl's stomach. Boom! The incomparably powerful mystic fire lightning suddenly exploded. At the same time, the elemental owl's ball of lightning also violently collided with Yang Dingtian's mystic fire lightning. Boom 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 boom. And Yang Dingtian had already used the flash technique to quickly escape before the bombardment. It was really like a nuclear bomb exploding. The darkness of the entire world was suddenly torn apart. The night sky within a few hundred miles was instantly as bright as day. The entire elemental owl's huge body was suddenly blasted apart. Then nothing could be seen. Everything was filled with countless rays of light. When Yang Dingtian was still a 9-star level 9 Grandmaster, even a half-saint could not withstand his mystic fire lightning. Because the mystic fire lightning was 100 times more powerful than the demonic sky-splitting lightning. At this time, Yang Dingtian had already broken through to the Infinity Grandmaster level 3 times. So, although this mystic fire lightning only had 80% of its qi energy, its power was probably more powerful than the one that had bombarded Wu Daozi. The elemental owl in front of him should not be able to withstand it. After the earth-shattering explosion, Yang Dingtian quickly rushed over. He found that the ground within a few thousand meters was completely red, as if it had been baked by a raging fire. And that elemental owl was already dead. Its huge body had already been burned red and twisted into a ball. Then a bluish-purple energy essence floated in the air. Yang Dingtian held it in his hand, and immediately felt an incomparably powerful energy. Although this elemental owl had not reached the half-saint level, its energy level was still much higher than his. Yang Dingtian took out a few other Grandmaster-level energy essences and tried to see if they could be fused. They could be fused, and it was even easy. Yang Dingtian fused the 7 Grandmaster-level energy essences together and suddenly became a larger energy essence. However, it still could not compare to the energy essence of this elemental owl. It was not even half of it. Yang Dingtian then fused it with the energy essence of the elemental owl, and suddenly formed a slightly larger energy essence. But it was only less than an inch in diameter. Then, Yang Dingtian held it in his hand and sat down cross-legged. He opened the Xian meridians all over his body and began to devour the energy. Wow! As soon as he devoured it, Yang Dingtian felt the richness of the mixed energy essence in his hand. It was very, very rich. The most direct energy, like a tide, surged out and violently entered Yang Dingtian's energy reserve. Almost a moment later, Yang Dingtian's energy reserve began to expand. After it expanded to the extreme, it suddenly exploded. Yang Dingtian's body once again entered a temporary state of nothingness. He broke through once again. However, this energy essence was still not exhausted. It continued to pour into Yang Dingtian's energy reserve. 15 minutes later, Yang Dingtian's energy reserve expanded again and again. Then it suddenly exploded again. His body and consciousness fell into a temporary state of nothingness. He broke through again. Then, after about 2 or 3 minutes of devouring, this energy essence was completely exhausted. Just one of this thing allowed Yang Dingtian to break through twice. Speaking of which, this was the 5th time Yang Dingtian had broken through after becoming a 9-star level 9 Grandmaster. Of course, he was still an unbounded Grandmaster. His current combat power should be about 2 or 3 times that of when he had just broken through to 9-star level 9. But how many unbounded Grandmasters did he have to break through to become a half-saint? However, Yang Dingtian still couldn't help but sigh. This energy essence was really heaven-defying. Previously, every time Yang Dingtian swallowed pure qi to break through, even if his energy reserve was completely exhausted, he still needed to absorb qi for more than 20 hours before he could break through again. But now, directly swallowing the energy essence, he could break through in half an hour. And the most heaven-defying thing was that this energy essence didn't have too many requirements for his qi meridians and energy reserve. That was to say, if he got enough energy essence, wouldn't he be able to bring it back and give it to Dishi Bian and Emoji to improve their cultivation? But for now, Yang Dingtian's first priority was to break through to become a half-saint. Only when he broke through to become a half-saint could he bring these energy essences to Dishi Bian and the others. But Yang Dingtian really wanted to know how many times he had to break through, and how many Grandmaster-level energy essences he needed to break through to become a half-saint. Who could tell him the answer? Yang Dingtian once asked Queen Poisa. In the end, the answer he got was completely useless, because she was a Naga. Moreover, it took Poisa in years to become a half-saint from a 9-star 9th grade Grandmaster. Next, Yang Dingtian continued his hunting and cultivation journey. Without sleep or rest, he hunted for about 800 miles for 1 day and 1 night. Generally speaking, the results of hunting were relatively stable. In 1 day and 1 night, he basically got 8 Grandmaster-level energy essences. Sometimes he could get a little more. But unfortunately, he didn't encounter any more Grandmaster-level elemental monsters like that before. This dark area was closest to the vital continent of the human countries, so the time it took to become a dark area should be the shortest. This time didn't seem to be enough to breed powerful elemental creatures. Therefore, the elemental creatures Yang Dingtian encountered were all of low cultivation. Perhaps the deeper he went, the better it would be. In this way, after 2 or 3 months, Yang Dingtian had accumulated nearly 1,000 Grandmaster-level energy essences. Yang Dingtian suspected that the elemental creatures in this dark area of tens of thousands of miles had been hunted clean by him. Just as Yang Dingtian was ready to continue hunting like this, looking forward to the 2nd and 3rd Grandmaster-level elemental creatures, a new abyss border suddenly appeared in front of him. Yang Dingtian was stunned. Just like that, the dark domain ended abruptly. Because Yang Dingtian was hunting in a sweeping manner, he was relatively clear about the area of this dark area. It was about 10,000 miles in length, and less than 10,000 miles in width. The dark area was very, very, very large, tens of billions of square kilometers. This dark domain was a little too small. Then, how many areas were there in this dark area? However, it seemed that the elemental creatures in the next dark area should be much stronger. Perhaps there would be infinite Grandmaster level elemental creatures, or even demi-saint level elemental creatures there. That would be good news for Yang Dingtian's cultivation, but it would definitely be many times more dangerous. Yang Dingtian began to fuse these energy essences at the edge of the abyss border. He fused 1,000 Grandmaster level energy essences into 10 large energy essences. After devouring and breaking through, he would pass through the abyss border and reach the new dark area. Of course, what Yang Dingtian did not know was, at this time, in the second dark area on the other side of the abyss border, over 1,000 Fox clan experts were in groups, hunting all kinds of infinite Grandmaster level and demi-saint level elemental creatures. Although the colorless door of the Skull Hall had been closed. However, Yang Dingtian could use the Void Fissure Fire to pass through any abyss border. Soon, he would enter the second dark area. The good news was that he could finally know how many energy essences he had to devour, and how many times he had to break through to Demi-Saint. The bad news was that someone was stealing from him. He could not enjoy all the elemental creatures in the entire dark area by himself. Chapter 809. Yang Dingtian had estimated that about 100 ordinary Great Grandmaster level energy essences could be fused into one infinite Grandmaster level energy essence. Of course, there were also high and low infinite Grandmaster level energy essences. For example, the elemental owl that Yang Dingtian had hunted was a very high infinite Grandmaster level energy essence. This time, Yang Dingtian had fused a total of 10 infinite Grandmaster level energy essences. The previous elemental owl's energy essence had allowed Yang Dingtian to break through twice. Then this time, there were a total of 10 infinite Grandmaster level energy essences. How many times could he break through? Yang Dingtian began to hold them in his palm one by one, then released all the celestial qi in his body into his mouth, and began to devour the energy essences. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All the energy essences were almost completely devoured, but there was still no breakthrough. Finally, when he finished devouring the 10th, his energy reserve began to expand. Boom! Then he fell into nothingness. Yang Dingtian finally broke through and entered the 6th infinite Grandmaster level breakthrough. God! How could this be? He had previously imagined that 10 infinite Grandmaster level energy essences would allow him to break through at least 4 or 5 times. In the end, it was just once. Just once. Yang Dingtian was afraid that he couldn't bear it, so he didn't fuse the 10 energy essences into one. If he had known, he would have just fused one. But why was this? 10 infinite Grandmaster level energy essences could only allow him to break through once? Although these infinite Grandmaster level energy essences were not as big as the elemental owls, it couldn't be that 10 of them added together were equal to one of it, right? Yang Dingtian shook his head and stopped thinking about it. In short, this reality proved one thing. That was, he couldn't cultivate in this first dark domain. First of all, the elemental creatures here were almost all hunted. Secondly, the elemental creatures here were too low level, all below the Great Grandmaster level. There was only one infinite Grandmaster level 1. It could be imagined that he would need more and more energy essences. This first dark domain would definitely not be able to support his consumption. Yang Dingtian looked at the abyss border in front of him. It appeared just in time. It was time for Yang Dingtian to enter the second dark domain. Yang Dingtian skillfully released a snow-white void-splitting flame and floated towards the abyss's border. Then, the spatial rending flame began to devour the energy of the abyss before splitting into the black and white flames. 1 to 2, 2 to 4 to 8, and so on and so on and so forth. Instantly, the entire border of the abyss was filled with black and white void-rending fire. Then, the two mystic flames began to fuse, turning into a colorless and transparent flame. Suddenly, the abyss border became a transparent crystal abyss once again. This was it, fire-devouring Yang Grandmaster level. Then, infinite Grandmaster level energy fire Devo. Yang Dingtian leaped down. God's level energy space. He kept falling. The time that belonged to Yang Dingtian had stopped again. It felt like an instant, but also like an eternity. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian charged out of the abyss border and entered a new world. The void-splitting fire Devo condensed into one and entered Yang Dingtian's sea of qi. This time, Yang Dingtian was mentally prepared. His entire qi sea continued to expand, and expand. Boom! It exploded again. His entire body sank into nothingness. Yang Dingtian had entered the seventh breakthrough of the limitless Great Master. After waking up, Yang Dingtian began to observe the world in front of him. This was the second dark domain. It looked no different from the first dark domain. It was still night. He could not see his own fingers. Then, Yang Dingtian squatted down and touched the stones on the ground. He felt the difference. In the first dark domain, although all the stones were black, they were still stones. However, the stones here didn't feel like stones anymore. Instead, they felt like a type of metal. Of course, they were not metal, but they felt very much like metal. In other words, this area had been in the dark domain for a slightly longer time. After a long period of melting and solidification, the stones had also changed. Then, there was no doubt that the elemental creatures here were much stronger. For example, in the first dark domain, although Yang Dingtian only found one infinite Grandmaster elemental creature, the rest were all Grandmaster elemental creatures. He did not encounter any Grandmaster elemental creatures. Was it because there were no Grandmaster elemental creatures? Definitely not, because all elemental creatures must have broken through from low to high level. All elemental creatures below Grandmaster level must have been dormant, quietly devouring energy. Only elemental creatures above Grandmaster level began to show themselves, trying to hunt other elemental creatures to improve themselves. Therefore, the elemental creatures in the second dark domain, as long as they showed themselves, must be very powerful. Therefore, the situation that Yang Dingtian was facing right now was definitely a situation where danger lurked everywhere. Therefore, Yang Dingtian carefully released countless vengeful spirits to detect everything within a radius of dozens of miles. Then he carefully advanced. He explored 50 miles, 200 miles, an entire night passed. But Yang Dingtian did not find a single elemental creature. What was going on? Why was there not even one? This was too strange. Next, Yang Dingtian could not explore leisurely, because the sun had risen. Soon the entire world became incomparably transparent. The surrounding temperature rose sharply. Yang Dingtian immediately put on his sunglasses, circulated his celestial qi, lowered the temperature, and maintained his life. Then he continued to advance. Soon the entire ground began to melt. Yang Dingtian found that the temperature in the second dark domain was much higher than in the first dark domain. Actually, the sun's rays should be about the same, but the things under his feet that seemed to be metal or stone were crazily devouring heat. So the temperature rose sharply. Yang Dingtian felt that the surface temperature was at least close to 2000 degrees. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's celestial qi was drained even faster. Braving the terrible heat, Yang Dingtian continued to advance. 50 miles, 100 miles, 200 miles, 300 miles, 500 miles. He did not encounter a single elemental creature. Was this a ghost? How could this be? Why was there not even a single elemental creature? He had already advanced 1,000 miles. The second dark domain took longer to form than the first dark domain, so there should be more elemental creatures. Of course, because they were hunting each other, the numbers would definitely decrease, but it should not be to the extent that there was not even one. Just like that, Yang Dingtian continued to advance. He advanced 1,000 miles. He really did not find anything. The sky darkened, the temperature dropped sharply, and the ground that had already melted red quickly solidified again. Yang Dingtian hurriedly sat down cross-legged, replenished his body with new elixirs, and then swallowed an aura-gathering elixir, and began to recover his combat celestial qi after everything was restored. Yang Dingtian once again released countless wraiths, and began to travel at night, and search for elemental creatures. However, this night, after more than 1,000 miles, he still did not find anything. The next day, staring at the terrible heat and lava. Yang Dingtian trekked another 1,000 miles, but still did not find anything. The third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, the sixth day, the seventh day, the eighth day. A full 10 days had passed, and Yang Dingtian had already explored more than 10,000 miles of the dark domain. He still did not find anything, not even a single elemental creature. This was really a ghost? Yang Dingtian was shocked. Could it be that he had walked through the entire second dark domain, and then crossed the border of the abyss to enter the third dark domain? This did not make sense. Why was there not a single elemental creature in the second dark domain? Although he was extremely disappointed, Yang Dingtian still released countless wraiths and carefully advanced. Forward, forward, forward. It should be late at night now. Walking aimlessly like this, Yang Dingtian was a little drowsy. Suddenly, dozens of miles ahead, there was an extremely strong energy fluctuation. Yang Dingtian could not help but be shocked and ecstatic. Elemental creatures had finally appeared? However, this energy fluctuation was very, very powerful, at least more powerful than the elemental owl. This meant that this elemental creature might be very powerful. Could he deal with it? However, it was not easy to encounter an elemental creature. It was impossible to just run away without a fight. Anyway, with the demonic spirit mist cloak, there was no need to worry about not being able to escape. Thus, Yang Dingtian used the mystic invisibility skill and flew toward the energy fluctuation dozens of miles away. After a short while, Yang Dingtian arrived at his destination. Then, he was even more stunned as he stood rooted to the ground. Because there were no elemental creatures in this huge energy fluctuation, only a dark cave entrance. An extremely powerful energy was constantly emerging from this cave entrance. So that was it. No wonder he could not see any elemental creatures on the surface. They were all hiding underground. Then should he go down? One must know that an underground cave was definitely much more dangerous than the surface. And this was the depths of the second dark domain. The elemental creatures were definitely extremely powerful. Just from the faint energy fluctuation of this cave entrance, there must be powerful elemental creatures inside. Perhaps more than one. Go in. Retreating without a fight was not his style. Yang Dingtian turned invisible and sneaked into the cave. This cave was really deep. 3,000 meters, 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters. Finally, he explored to the end. Then, Yang Dingtian was completely stunned. This was a huge cave, and there was an extremely powerful elemental creature inside. But this was not the reason why Yang Dingtian was stunned. He was shocked because, other than the powerful elemental creature, there were actually 5 people here. How could there be people? Who were these people? Chapter 8:10. Soon Yang Dingtian knew who these people were. They were the high demon fox aristocrats from Little Western Paradise. Because Yang Dingtian had heard these people talking, then, Yang Dingtian knew that this so-called second dark realm was the dark realm that the high demon fox aristocrats cultivated in. Its entrance was in the colorless door in the Hall of Heads. Of course, that door was closed now. However, Yang Dingtian still arrived here after passing through 2 abyss borders. No wonder he didn't see any elemental creatures after walking for more than 10,000 miles. They were all killed by the demon fox race. No matter how many elemental creatures there were in the second dark realm, they wouldn't be enough to fight against the entire demon fox race. Also, the high demon fox aristocrats had been fighting here for at least thousands of years. For a moment, Yang Dingtian couldn't help but feel both happy and worried. He was happy that he was no longer alone in the vast dark realm. He could finally find someone to ask about many things. He was worried that the competition would be very fierce. Yang Dingtian temporarily put aside his worries and carefully observed the situation in front of him. This elemental creature was a 9-headed snake. Its body was more than 100 meters long, and its diameter was several meters thick. Its 9 heads looked extremely ferocious and terrifying. Its entire body was black and made of metal that was impenetrable by swords and spears. The eyes of each head were of a different color. Its opponents were 5 high demon fox aristocrats, 3 men and 2 women. Among them, the one with the highest cultivation was a silver-haired woman. Her cultivation was very close to half-sage. In addition, there was a black-haired man who was also very close to half-sage. Among the remaining 3, the purple-haired woman was the youngest and had the lowest cultivation. She was only a 9-star level, 9 great grandmaster. The other 2 men had just crossed over to half-sage. In short, the cultivation of these 5 people was very, very balanced. And this 9-headed snake seemed to be more powerful than the elemental owl that Yang Dingtian killed. However, he didn't know if it had broken through to half-sage. But in short, it was very fierce. Fighting 1 against 5, it wasn't at a disadvantage. Soon Yang Dingtian discovered how heaven-defying this hydra was. Its body was basically entrenched in the deep red liquid, and its 9 heads poked out to attack. Most importantly, each of its 9 heads surpassed the cultivation base of a limitless great grandmaster. Each of them fought on their own, completely independent of their own intelligence. That was not all. Among the 9 snake heads, some were physical attacks, some were fire, and some were ice. It was a dual elemental creature. Among the 5 members of the Fox clan, the silver-haired woman and the black-haired man had the highest cultivation. Because their cultivation was infinitely close to that of a half-saint, each of them had to fight against 3 snake heads. As for the remaining 3 people, they had to deal with the remaining 3 snake heads. The 2 limitless great grandmasters were already struggling to fight. As for the 9-star 9th grade martial grandmaster, the purple-haired woman was completely relying on her treasures to dodge. She simply didn't dare to face one of the snake heads head-on. In short, this battle was extremely disadvantageous for the 5 high-level demon foxes. The 2 experts who were infinitely close to becoming half-saints were barely holding on. It was only a matter of time before the 2 limitless great grandmasters were defeated. As for the 9-star 9th grade martial grandmaster, the purple-haired woman could only desperately dodge. She would be in danger at any time. Therefore, if this continued, the defeat of the 5-person team was only a matter of time. Right now they were just barely maintaining a balance. Once the purple-haired woman was defeated and injured, the remaining snake head could attack anyone at will, directly breaking the balance and winning. "Give up, Ozzy can't take it anymore," the black-haired man said. "No," the purple-haired woman said. "It's been more than a year. We tracked it for more than half a year, and then dug the cave. Finally we found this hydra. We absolutely can't give up. But if this goes on, we will all be finished," another limitless great grandmaster said. "If you want to leave, you can leave. Even if I die, I will die here," the silver-haired woman said sternly. The 5 of them had no choice but to fight desperately. However, the situation changed quickly. The purple-haired woman with the weakest cultivation base, Azi, had almost exhausted her cultivation base, and her dodging speed was slightly slower. Whoosh! The poisonous arrow shot out of the hydra's mouth instantly hit her chest. Immediately, her delicate body flew dozens of meters away, and then her whole body completely changed color. "Azi!" the remaining 4 people exclaimed. The black-haired man immediately rushed over to save the purple-haired girl. The silver-haired woman said coldly, "Don't move. I will take this extra snake head. If anyone leaves the battle, everyone will die." "But Azi is going to die soon," the black-haired man said angrily. "It's better for her to die than for everyone to die," the silver-haired woman said. Yang Dingtian immediately sucked in a breath of cold air and thought to himself, "This silver-haired woman is beautiful, but she is really cold and ruthless." Yang Dingtian saw that the Naga woman named Azi's body began to change color rapidly. The hydra's poison quickly spread in her body. Yang Dingtian knew that he shouldn't show up at this time. However, he still couldn't leave her in the lurch. Instantly, he flashed over and directly hugged Azi, who was poisoned, and quickly fed her elixirs. However, a few elixirs were completely useless. The hydra's poison was quite powerful. The poison was still spreading rapidly in her body. At this time, it was unknown whether she was dead or alive, and she was unconscious. At this time, the 4 high nobles of the Fox Demon tribe had already discovered Yang Dingtian. The black-haired man instantly asked sternly, "Who are you?" Yang Dingtian didn't answer. Instead, he cut his finger and let his blood drip into the purple-haired woman's mouth. Yang Dingtian's blood was completely cleansed by the deep-sea mystic poison, the dark mystic fire, and the Naga's mystic meridians. It could be said that he was completely immune to all poisons. His blood was a natural antidote. As expected, after Yang Dingtian's blood entered her stomach, the poison in the purple-haired woman's body slowly faded away. Her face gradually regained its color. The purple-haired woman's life was saved. However, the four-man battle team on the other side wasn't so comfortable. Originally, the 5 of them were at a disadvantage against the 9 snake heads. However, they could still barely hold on. Now one of the snake heads was free and was launching sneak attacks on the 4 of them. Almost in the blink of an eye, 2 limitless great masters were already injured. One of their shoulders was directly pierced by sharp teeth, and the other's arm was directly broken in many parts. These 4 people were completely surrounded by danger. It was only a matter of time before they were defeated. Yang Dingtian didn't say anything, and suddenly pulled out his near-emperor-grade soul sword. Pa! A bolt of demonic sky-splitting lightning struck the empty snake head that was ambushing from all directions. Very quickly, Yang Dingtian attracted the hatred of this snake head. It instantly attacked Yang Dingtian with all its might. Therefore, the battle quickly entered a new balance. However, this balance was very fragile. Especially the 2 injured limitless great masters. They could collapse at any time. Once they collapsed, 2 of the snake heads would be free. At that time, there would only be one ending, which was being wiped out. Then, if the 5-man team wanted to win, it would be very easy. Destroying one of the snake heads could break the balance and gain the advantage. Then one by one, they would destroy all the remaining snake heads. At present, it seemed that the hope of destroying one of the snake heads first could only fall on Yang Dingtian. This was because although the silver-haired woman and the black-haired man's cultivation were higher and infinitely close to the half-saint level, they had already reached their limit to resist 3 snake heads. As for the other 2 limitless great masters, it would be good enough if they could protect themselves. Seeing Yang Dingtian suddenly burst out with the demonic sky-splitting lightning, everyone was suddenly stunned and looked at Yang Dingtian in amazement. However, this demonic sky-splitting lightning was still useless against the 9-headed snake. It seemed that all the elemental creatures Yang Dingtian had encountered were not afraid of lightning attacks. They really didn't know how that elemental owl became an overlord in the first dark realm. Since it wasn't afraid of lightning, then they would directly use physical attacks. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian's sword was like lightning, wildly slashing at the snake head. It had to be said that the snake head was extremely fast. Even the silver-haired woman, whose cultivation was infinitely close to the half-saint level, found it difficult to successfully hit the snake head once. It was because its speed was just too fast. It shrunk like a bolt of lightning. However, this speed was nothing in front of Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian had the demonic spirit mist cloak, so it was completely flashing. Whoosh 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 whoosh. No matter how fast the snake head was, it was impossible for it to hit Yang Dingtian once. Yang Dingtian, however, easily slashed it dozens or hundreds of times. Ordinary sharp swords couldn't do anything to the snake head at all, because it was completely impenetrable. Yang Dingtian's soul sword was close to the emperor level, which was almost the sharpest weapon in the world. In addition, Yang Dingtian's every slash was filled with extremely powerful celestial qi. Therefore, in almost a moment, the entire abyss was flying in a mess. This snake head was almost covered in wounds from Yang Dingtian's slashes. In the blink of an eye, it was unrecognizable, and its speed slowed down a lot. However, it was even more violent. Roar! Suddenly, it opened its mouth and madly shot green poison arrows at Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian didn't even try to dodge. He lifted his emperor-grade soul sword and slashed down ferociously at its head. After spitting out the poison, the snake head was especially weak. Crack! The snake's head was severed by Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, who was shrouded in the poisonous fog, was completely unscathed. He even directly opened his Xian veins and madly devoured it. This poisonous fog was also energy. After devouring it all, he used the yin-yang qi transformation technique to refine it into pure celestial qi energy. As for the poisonous part, he forced it out of his palm and condensed it into a poisonous pill. This thing was Naga Shuang's favorite. After the snake head was cut off, it still jumped around on the ground, opened its mouth, and desperately tried to bite Yang Dingtian. Swish, 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 swish. Yang Dingtian madly slashed hundreds of times, and in an instant, the head was directly broken into pieces. Such tyrannical violence stunned the other 4 people. They looked at the soul sword in Yang Dingtian's hand with incomparable envy. In this battle against the Hydra, almost all of the suffering was the Hydra's invulnerability. This Hydra was very insensitive to celestial qi attacks, and only physical attacks were effective. However, it was invulnerable. Yang Dingtian's treasured sword was like cutting melons and vegetables. It was really awesome. After eliminating the first snakehead, Yang Dingtian followed the same method. Soon, the second, third, and fourth snakeheads were cut off. After the third snakehead was cut off, the battle situation was directly reversed. Especially after Yang Dingtian took on one of the silver-haired woman's snakeheads. Her combat strength was instantly released and directly broke the balance. Her sword could not cut off the snakeheads, but she used violence to directly smash one of the snakeheads. The other snakehead was twisted into a ball by her, pressed to the ground, and roasted into a pile of molten iron with the celestial fire. The black-haired man was not to be outdone, and also destroyed 2 snakeheads. Therefore, within an hour after Yang Dingtian joined the battle, the 5-person team won a complete victory. This was the characteristic of team combat. One must not have a fatal weakness. And that purple-haired girl was that fatal weakness, which almost caused the entire battle to have a destructive ending. After Yang Dingtian replaced her, the balance was instantly reversed, directly leading to the appearance of victory. After destroying the Hydra, the 2 infinite great masters directly lay on the ground motionless. At the same time, 9 energy essences slowly floated up. What a huge surprise! There were actually 9 energy essences in this Hydra. Moreover, each of them was larger than the elemental owl that Yang Dingtian had hunted. The silver-haired woman ignored the 9 energy essences and suddenly drew her sword, pointing it at Yang Dingtian. Who are you? Why are you secretly following us? The silver-haired woman looked at Yang Dingtian and asked coldly. At the same time, that black-haired expert walked behind Yang Dingtian unconcernedly. Meanwhile, those 2 limitless great masters had also surrounded Yang Dingtian in the middle, one on the left and one on the right. The black-haired man looked at Yang Dingtian. Sir, you have saved our lives, and we will remember this. However, you still have to tell us your origin. You also know that the rules in the Dark Realm are very cruel. Every time there are hundreds or even thousands of people who come in to cultivate, and less than 1/10 of them can come out alive. Yang Dingtian said. Then before I tell you my origin, can you also tell us your names? You don't know us? The silver-haired woman said coldly. Yes, Yang Dingtian said. The silver-haired woman suddenly had a strange look. There was actually a fox demon who had entered the Dark Realm to cultivate who did not know her? I am the princess of the Golden clan Yaoli. The silver-haired woman said coldly. It was her. This woman was Yao Qi's adopted sister in the Golden clan. Chapter 8:11. Yang Dingtian knew very little about Yaoli. He only knew that she had a very good relationship with Yao Qi. When Yao Qi showed her powerful abilities, and her status in the Golden clan became awkward, Yaoli took the initiative to marry Yao Qi. That was because in the Little Western Paradise's high nobles, women also had the right to inherit. Yaoli's actions were equivalent to passing her inheritance to Yao Qi. She hoped that Yao Qi could become the leader of the Golden clan in the future. Of course, the leader of the Golden clan was not something to look forward to. That was because it was a lifelong position. Moreover, the lifespan of the Fox clan was very, very long. Who knew how long it would take for Yao Li's father to pass away? However, as long as one was the young master of the clan, it was equivalent to the second in command of the clan. Most of the time, they could exercise the same authority as the leader. However, Yaoqi did not want to live under someone else's roof. She decisively left the Goldenah clan and took Yongxi as her master. In the end, she successfully defied the natural order and became the chairman of the Little Western Paradise. Hence, Yaoqi's life was definitely a legendary one. "All right, stranger, it's time to tell me where you came from," Yao Li said coldly. Instantly, Yang Dingtian was in a dilemma. He did not know whether to tell the truth or lie. Actually, she still thought that Yang Dingtian was one of the high nobles of the Fox clan, and one of the names to enter the Dark Realm. However, he followed her with ulterior motives. Telling the truth might be dangerous. After all, humans and Fox clan were different races. Moreover, the Fox clan probably treated the Second Dark Realm as their exclusive property. If humans entered rashly, they would definitely be viewed as enemies or even killed. Moreover, it was not easy to answer how Yang Dingtian entered the Dark Realm. If he told a lie, it would go against Yang Dingtian's heart. It was not that he was so hypocritical that he did not want to lie. However, the woman in front of him, Yao Li, could not tolerate any lies. Most importantly, there were many high nobles of the Fox clan in the Second Dark Realm. Moreover, killing was not prohibited here. Moreover, the elemental creatures here were all very powerful. Yang Dingtian might not be able to handle them alone. Hence, he wanted to join this team. Hence, being honest with each other became very important. Therefore, Yang Dingtian decided to tell the truth. If the other party heard that Yang Dingtian was a human and launched an attack, he could easily turn invisible, flash, and escape. Although Yang Dingtian wasn't a match for the other party, he was still able to leave calmly. "Before I tell you who I am, I hope you won't ask me how I got here," Yang Dingtian said. Once those words were spoken, Yao Li was stunned, and then she nodded. "I'm a human. My name isn't important, but I can say it if necessary," Yang Dingtian said. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone's expression changed drastically. "How is that possible?" Yao Li said sternly. You clearly have the silver dragon bloodline in your body." "Yes, I also have the silver dragon bloodline," Yang Dingtian said. "Actually, that's not all. My silver dragon bloodline may be even richer than yours." That's right. After Yao Li's silver dragon bloodline entered Yang Dingtian's body, a different change immediately occurred. And under the catalysis of the dark green dragon, it seemed to have sublimated. Therefore, when the silver palace swallowed the darkness crystal, Yang Dingtian's body instantly turned into the appearance of the fallen silver dragon. "How did you get here?" Yao Li asked, but after asking, she immediately shut her mouth because Yang Dingtian said not to ask him this question. She immediately took a step forward. The other three also took a step forward. As long as Yao Li gave the order, the four of them would attack together and kill Yang Dingtian. After all, he wasn't the same kind. "Why did you follow us?" Yao Li asked. Yang Dingtian said, "I didn't follow you. After entering the Dark Realm, I've been looking for elemental creatures. After searching for a long time, I found this cave and went in. In the end, I found that you were fighting this Hydra. I didn't want to disturb you, but when I saw that the purple-haired girl was injured, I couldn't bear it, so I helped." "Then what do you want now?" Yao Li asked. "I want to join you," Yang Dingtian said. "Obviously, this purple-haired girl is no longer suitable for battle. Join us." Yao Li looked at Yang Dingtian up and down. "Do you know that if you hadn't told the truth just now, you would have become a corpse now? You're a human, not one of my kind. Your heart must be different. I should have killed you immediately, but since you saved my sister, I'll spare your life." "Sister." Suddenly, the purple-haired girl on the ground struggled to get up and said, "Sister, let him join. I'm a burden to begin with. He's very strong. If he joins us, our team will be more powerful." "No," Yao Li said. "We can't let disloyal people join. This is a principle. Don't lose sight of the big picture for the sake of small benefits." "Princess Li." Immediately, the black-haired man opened his mouth and tried to persuade her. "No, I said no, and that means no," Yao Li said coldly. "Moreover, this person is only relying on his agile movements and sharp sword. He's only useful against golden elemental creatures like the Hydra. If he encounters other elemental creatures, he will be vulnerable. His cultivation is at most the same as Awan and Awu. Awan and Awu were referring to the two ordinary infinite great masters. These two people should be her attendants. Sister, he saved my life, the purple-haired girl said. Yao Li directly took out one of the 9 floating energy essences and handed it to Yang Dingtian. Our Golden clan never owes anyone favors. This is your reward for saving my sister and helping us defeat the Hydra. Leave. It's impossible for you to join us. Yang Dingtian was speechless. The girl in front of him had the same determination as Yao Qi, but she didn't have Yao Qi's intelligence. Therefore, she was especially stubborn and unreasonable. Just by looking at her appearance, one could see that she had a tall and straight body. Although her face was extremely beautiful, the lines of her facial features were clearly defined. The curves of her delicate body were originally curvaceous, but they were forcefully flattened. On the other hand, the purple-haired girl that Yang Dingtian saved, although she was much younger, her face was exquisite and beautiful. Her delicate body was voluptuous and curvaceous. She was especially attractive. Although Yang Dingtian wanted to join her team, seeing Yao Li's attitude, he didn't force her. He directly took the energy essence and turned to leave. I'm sorry, the purple-haired girl said softly when he passed by her. Yang Dingtian shook his head and left the cave. Next, Yang Dingtian began his solo journey again. However, he still didn't find anything. 3 days later, he discovered another intense energy wave. When he arrived, he found another cave. Therefore, he turned invisible and sneaked in. After tens of thousands of meters, he indeed found another very, very powerful elemental beast. It was a flame demon, definitely a beast above the half-saint level. However, there were a total of 20 high demon fox nobles attacking. Among these 20 people, there were as many as 5 of them who were demi-saints and above. Not only that, but there were also 3 experts guarding the entrance to the abyss, not allowing anyone to enter. At the entrance, Yang Dingtian saw 2 corpses. They were both from the demon fox race. Therefore, Yang Dingtian turned invisible and flashed away almost immediately. This team was very strong. It could be said that as long as he showed himself, he would definitely die. The other party wouldn't even listen to his explanation and directly kill him. That was because the most crucial battle was going on inside. Any outsider who came in and caused trouble could lead to the annihilation of the entire team. This was not a game where they could start again after being annihilated. If they were annihilated here, they would be completely dead. In the next few days, Yang Dingtian wandered alone in the second dark realm, but he still didn't find anything. Moreover, he had already fully sensed the danger within. He had already entered the cave 4 times and met different teams that were killing elemental creatures inside. At the entrance of each cave, there were corpses. Some had 2 or 3 corpses, some had more than 10. Obviously, the elemental beasts of the second dark realm all lived deep underground. Only occasionally, for some reason, they would dig a deep cave and come to the surface. Therefore, every cave meant an elemental creature, which meant extremely precious energy essence. And the same cave would often be discovered by a few teams together. At this time, if there was room for discussion, they would fight together. If there was no room for discussion, they would either retreat or fight. And at this time, fighting was the majority of the choices. Therefore, at the entrance of each cave, there were corpses. It was no wonder that thousands of high demon fox nobles entered the dark realm to cultivate. But after 200 years, less than 100 people could leave. Because this was a place of naked fighting and killing, Yang Dingtian continued to search everywhere. Compared to others, Yang Dingtian definitely had a very natural advantage. That was, he could use the million spirit demon fire to detect energy waves. Others searched one place at a time, but Yang Dingtian could search tens to hundreds of miles in an instant. Also, Yang Dingtian discovered that even if there were deep caves, they would not last long. Because in the day, the entire ground would melt. By then, magma would flow into the cave and gradually seal the entire cave. Just like that, carefully avoiding the other teams, Yang Dingtian continued to search everywhere. This second dark realm was really much bigger than the first dark realm. Finally, one day Yang Dingtian found something. This day might be Yang Dingtian's lucky day. This was a brand new cave. Yang Dingtian carried great hope and surprise as he snuck into the cave with his stealth ability. He went deeper, deeper, deeper. After almost 20,000 meters, he saw a huge magma abyss. A dark Balrog with flames all over its body was swimming above the magma. And the most amazing thing was that this dark Balrog did not reach the level of a half-saint. Then, Yang Dingtian could try to fight it alone. If he had reached the half-holy class, Yang Dingtian would have no choice but to flee. Yang Dingtian fell into some hesitation. Although this Balrog did not reach the level of a half-saint, it was obviously very close to it. Whether or not he could destroy it by himself was still an unknown. Once the fight started, it might even be life-threatening. However, Yang Dingtian had searched for so long and finally found a Balrog. How could he give up? Fight. If he couldn't beat it, he could just run. Therefore, Yang Dingtian decided to fight. There was only one way to deal with the Balrog, and that was to use ice-type attacks. Any other attacks would be ineffective. Yang Dingtian pulled out his Emperor-grade soul sword and slashed out an ice-cold profound chi sword light. Whoosh! Infinite Grandmaster's ice-cold sword light directly slashed the Balrog's head. Crack! In an instant the Balrog suddenly dodged. This ice-cold profound chi only hit its tail. In an instant, its entire tail was completely frozen, and then suddenly broke. Roar! The Balrog was furious and let out a furious roar. Suddenly, the entire cavern shook violently. Countless streams of magma gushed out. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The Balrog's countless tentacle whips crazily whipped towards Yang Dingtian. There were dozens of tentacles, each with a high temperature of tens of thousands of degrees. Being whipped once, they were directly turned into ashes. Each force was more than 1,000,000 pounds. Clap, 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 clap. Immediately, the entire cave was whipped until it exploded, and rocks flew everywhere. Yang Dingtian used the Devil Spirit Mist cloak and frantically dodged these countless flame whips. Roar! At the same time, the Balrog suddenly spewed out flames that soared into the sky, wanting to completely devour Yang Dingtian. At the same time, dozens of miles away, Yaoli suddenly crouched down and pressed her ear to the ground. She immediately felt a strong vibration. There are elemental creatures 30 miles ahead, Yaoli said. Immediately, everyone was pleasantly surprised. Previously, it took a full year before they found an ownerless elemental creature. This time, just over half a month later, they actually discovered one. Of course, whether it had an owner or not, they did not know. Hence, the 5 people advanced at lightning speed. Very soon, they saw this Balrog's cave. This is a new cave. No one should have discovered it yet. Furthermore, looking at the size of the cave, it should be a rank 11 Balrog. The 5 of us should be able to kill it if we fight with all our might. Yaoli said, "Quick, take advantage of the fact that others haven't discovered it yet. Strive to finish the battle within half a day." Yes, the remaining 4 people answered. Then, Yaoli led the team, and the 5 people rushed into the cave at lightning speed. But before reaching the bottom of the cave, they heard the sounds of intense battle. The few people exchanged glances, finally discovering a new cave with great difficulty. It actually had an owner. What to do? Everyone immediately looked at Yaoli. An abyss cave with an owner. Rushing in meant an offense, it meant a massacre. However, not rushing in, Yaoli was seriously unwilling. "Go in, this place is the law of the jungle to begin with. Don't blame us either," Yaoli said coldly, then directly rushed in. After entering the enormous abyss giant cave, they were dumbfounded with shock. The human actually fought a rank 11 Balrog alone. This was crazy. Although this rank 11 Balrog was the same rank as that 9-headed snake, from a certain extent, it was even more terrifying. The 5 of them, because there were 2 ice attribute experts, that was why they felt that they could fight. And this human's cultivation was even inferior to Yaoli's. He actually dared to go and kill alone. Yaoli and the rest were really going to be blinded. Chapter 8:12. This human was courting death. This human was dead meat. That was the only reaction Yao Li and the rest had. It was a level 11 elemental beast. The 5 of them could barely take it down. This human's cultivation was inferior to Yao Li's, yet he was fighting alone. Even if he was courting death, this was not the way to go. Immediately, the purple-haired girl widened her eyes and looked at Yao Li. She definitely wanted her sister to save young Dingtian. Yao Li's expression turned cold as she turned around. In any case, she had already repaid this human for his help. Furthermore, she was already very kind by not going up to kill this human and snatch the fire demon away. Listen up. Once this human dies, we'll immediately go and kill this fire demon. Yao Li had a specialized sound wave as she spoke to the other 4 in the team. The purple-haired girl's expression changed as she whispered, "Sister, how can you do this? He saved me. We can't just leave him to die. Furthermore, you want to snatch his fire demon away. That's too shameless." Before she could finish speaking, she was grabbed by Yao Li's hand. She was instantly unable to move. Yao Li said coldly, "Yaozi, remember this. Although you're the most talented in the clan, and I know that father wants you to break through, don't forget that I'm the leader of the team. I'm the leader of this party, and I'm twice your age. Put away your naivety and ignorance." Yaozi struggled desperately, but was unable to break free. At that moment, Yang Dingtian was being chased by the fire demon. He was dodging the fire demon's tentacles like lightning. This was not considered terrifying. The key was the flames spewed out by the fire demon. The flames were tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of degrees. They filled the entire cave, and there was no way to dodge them. He had to rely on his ice-cold Xian Qi to protect himself. Unless he dodged to the back of the fire demon. However, behind it was the rocky cliff, its body. Getting close to its incomparably hot body was akin to courting death. Therefore, Yang Dingtian's Xian Qi was being depleted like the tide. Yang Dingtian finally understood that in the second dark realm, it was difficult for a single person to move around alone. A team of 5 was the minimum. If there was only one person, they would be at a disadvantage if they tried to snatch the fire demon. Furthermore, even if they managed to snatch the elemental creature, they could not fight it alone. Although the fire demon in front of him wasn't a half-saint, who knew how it was so powerful? Yang Dingtian had already exhausted all his means, but he still couldn't hurt it at all. Logically speaking, the flame demon had to use ice attacks. Yang Dingtian also used it. The devil spirit fiend flame was almost used up. In the end, it was useless. The endless lava below provided the flame demon with an unending supply of energy. Yang Dingtian's ice attacks had just managed to freeze it a little, when the flame demon immediately recovered. To sum it up, Yang Dingtian's ice attacks weren't enough. It wasn't enough for the flame fiend to recover once. If this continued, even if Yang Dingtian exhausted all his profound qi, it would still be useless. However, at this moment, Yang Dingtian noticed that someone had entered, and was immediately shocked. The Dark Realm was a place of naked slaughter. Once these Fox clan experts entered and discovered the flame demon and Yang Dingtian, it was guaranteed that the first thing they would do would be to kill them and seize the flame demon. However, when he saw that it was Yao Li and the others, Yang Dingtian was relieved. At the very least, this ice-cold beauty wouldn't turn hostile and directly kill him. Thus, Yang Dingtian said, "Everyone, let's kill this flame devil queen together. We'll split it equally." Who knew that Yao Li said coldly, "No need. After you're killed, this flame demon will completely belong to us." When these words came out, Yang Dingtian almost vomited blood. "Fuck your grandpa, you vicious woman, you're really direct. To think that I saved your sister and helped you fight the Hydra." Originally, Yang Dingtian really had the intention of retreating, because he really couldn't beat it. The blood he lost wasn't even enough for it to recover once. The lava beneath it completely gave it an endless stream of energy. Therefore, Yang Dingtian would never be able to cause actual damage to it. To Yang Dingtian, it was almost invincible. At this time, Yang Dingtian really regretted not bringing the phantom spirit demon mother. If he brought it, it would freeze all your lava into ice in a minute, freezing you flame demon to death. No matter how powerful this flame demon was, it couldn't compare to the tens of thousands of years old phantom spirit demon mother. However, Yang Dingtian felt that in front of nature, he couldn't be too selfish, so he let the phantom spirit demon mother go back. Yang Dingtian had the intention to directly pierce the flame demon with his sword like he killed the Hydra. However, that required the flame demon to have a body. This monster looked like a pure fire elemental creature. It didn't have a physical body at all. Its entire body was covered in black and red flames. Even the whip was flame energy, and not a physical body. If you slashed it with your sword, it wouldn't react at all. Moreover, its surface temperature was hundreds of thousands of degrees. Even if Yang Dingtian had the demon spirit demon fire, he didn't dare to get close. Yang Dingtian was really at his wit's end. Whether it was the demon sky-splitting lightning, the million spirit demon fire, or the demon spirit demon fire, Yang Dingtian tried them all. They were completely useless. Of course, he had a heaven-defying trump card, the dark green mystic fire. However, this master was hibernating in the depths of his energy reserve. If Yang Dingtian didn't die, it couldn't be bothered to make a move. Moreover, it was only responsible for protecting lives. It wasn't responsible for killing enemies. Then, there was only one way to destroy this flame demon. That was if the ice element damage exceeded a certain level, and exceeded the amount of energy that the lava could restore to the flame demon. It could be destroyed. As for Yao Li and the rest, 3 of them were of the ice element. With them, it would definitely be possible. The ice element damage would definitely be enough. However, this damned woman didn't save him. She wanted to wait for Yang Dingtian to die, before reaping the benefits. This woman had learned Yao Qi's coldness and viciousness completely. At this moment, the flame demon's attacks were getting crazier. Hundreds of flaming whips lashed out wildly. Even if Yang Dingtian had the demon spirit mist cloak, it was getting more and more strenuous. He had already taken a few hits. Luckily, he had the demon spirit black armor, and the demon spirit demon fire energy shield. Otherwise he would have died long ago. Moreover, the flames that the flame demon spewed out were getting higher and higher. Yang Dingtian was almost unable to hold on. However, no matter what he thought of, he couldn't hit it at all. Therefore, Yang Dingtian had no choice but to retreat and give up. Although it was embarrassing, at least he could save his life. Everyone pay attention. This human is about to die. We have to go up immediately and destroy the flame demon. Don't let it sink into the lava abyss. Yao Li suddenly said. Hearing this, Yang Dingtian, who was desperately trying to escape, almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Fuck, if you fall into my hands, I promise to rape you 100 times. Yang Dingtian suddenly couldn't take it anymore. Originally, he wanted to flash and escape at this moment. However, after hearing this woman's words, he was really unwilling. If he gave up on escaping, he would be letting this evil woman in front of him take advantage of him. One last time, just one last time. Yang Dingtian made up his mind. If his last attack was still ineffective, he would immediately flash and escape. He couldn't care less about letting this evil woman take advantage of him. What would Yang Dingtian use for his last attack? Void-splitting fire. This was the mystic flame that he had never used to attack. Because all this while, the void-splitting fire had never shown any offensive attributes. Its heaven-defying function seemed to be to open a space door to the dark world, and to travel through the border of the abyss. In short, it didn't seem to be used for battle at all. Now, he had no choice but to try to use the void-splitting fire to destroy the flame demon. Whoosh! Yang Dingtian summoned the transparent void-splitting fire, and injected enough energy. Then he attacked fiercely. Whoosh! The void-splitting fire directly hit the flame demon. Then there was no then. There was no reaction at all. Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. When he used the devil's sky-splitting lightning, at least the flame demon was shocked and stunned for a moment. When he used the million spirit demon fire, the flame demon would at least devour it excitedly. When he used the devil spirit demon fire, at least it would temporarily injure the flame demon, even though it would recover immediately. However, when he used the void-splitting fire to hit the flame demon, there was no reaction at all. In fact, the flame demon didn't even know that it was beaten. It seemed that the void-splitting fire was indeed not used for battle. It had no combat attributes at all. It seemed that he really had to give up and escape. He was going to let Yao Li, this vicious woman, take advantage of him. He was really unwilling. What a loss of face. However, there was no other way. If this continued, when his mystic chi was exhausted, it would be a dead end. He could only give up on escaping. However, Yang Dingtian was still unwilling. Thus, an idea suddenly emerged in his mind. Using the void-splitting fire and the devil spirit demon fire. He didn't know if it would work. The devil spirit demon fire was of the ice attribute. Could the void-splitting fire make it undergo a qualitative change? Thus, Yang Dingtian's imagination ran wild. He summoned the devil spirit demon fire with his left hand and the void-splitting fire with his right. Then he fused them together. In the end, he found that these two mystic fires couldn't be fused. They were completely distinct. Even if they were placed in the same position, they would burn themselves separately and wouldn't react to each other. Thus, Yang Dingtian's imagination ran wild again. He directly changed the devil spirit demon fire to the chaos attribute, and then changed the void-splitting fire to the chaos attribute. In the end, he found that the void-splitting fire was originally of the chaos attribute in its transparent state. There was no need to change it at all. Then, he fused the two chaos attribute devil spirit demon fire and the void-splitting fire together. It actually worked. When the two mystic fires were fused together, they directly turned into a flame that seemed to be green and blue. It wasn't a new mystic fire, but at least it was a brand new flame. Then, Yang Dingtian suddenly shot out, shooting towards the flame demon's chest. Whoosh! It was as fast as lightning. In an instant, this mystic fire fused and shot at the flame demon. This fused mystic fire suddenly drilled into the flame demon's body. Ew! The flame demon suddenly let out a shocking howl, and then struggled desperately slamming. The entire abyss cave kept shattering. Countless magma soared into the sky, only to see that the place where the flame demon's chest was attacked was corroded into a huge hole, and it couldn't be recovered at all. Yang Dingtian was ecstatic. Then while dodging, he released the devil spirit demon fire and the void-splitting fire, turning them into the chaos attribute, and then shot out. Ew! The flame demon was tricked again, and a terrifying black hole appeared in its chest. Although the magma could heal this black hole, it was extremely slow, almost as if it didn't heal at all. The furious flame demon completely lost its mind. Suddenly, it rushed out of the magma abyss, crazily pouncing towards Yang Dingtian. Pa 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 pa. Countless flame whips crazily lashed out. Terrifying flames crazily spewed out. Suddenly, the entire huge abyss cave collapsed crazily. The terrifying flames melted all the rocks in the cave. The destructive power of this flame demon was really astonishing. But for Yang Dingtian, it was not a problem at all, because he had the Devil Spirit Mist Cloak and Devil Spirit Black Armor, as well as the Devil Spirit Demon Fire Energy Shield. Moreover, after this flame demon left the magma abyss that it relied on, its energy quickly drained, and its wounds couldn't be replenished by any fire attribute energy. In addition, it was crazily spitting fire and crazily lashing out. Therefore, its fire attribute energy was completely like a flood that opened the floodgates, madly pouring out. And Yang Dingtian quickly flashed and dodged. One after another, the primal chaos attribute Devil Spirit Demon Fire and Void-Splitting Fire fused together and shot out wildly. In a short moment, the dozens of meters tall flame demon's body was already riddled with holes. The flames on most of its body had already been extinguished, turning into black holes one after another. However, it still didn't give up at all, desperately trying to kill Yang Dingtian, and counterattacked even more crazily. Boom 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 boom. The flame demon's counterattack was incomparably astonishing. As long as Yang Dingtian was hit, he would lose half his life. But Yang Dingtian flashed quickly, always attacking the flame demon from behind. He never dared to be hit by its flames head-on. 49. 50. Yang Dingtian shot out 50 mystical fire fused together. Aolo! 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 The flame demon let out a shocking roar. Then, its entire body used up too much energy, and it was corroded too much. Finally, it couldn't bear it and suddenly exploded, turning into ashes and completely dying. Then an energy essence that was even larger than before slowly floated in the air. Yang Dingtian succeeded. When he almost gave up hope, he attempted to use the void-splitting fire to fuse with the devil spirit demon fire. And the result gave him a huge surprise. It seemed like the void-splitting fire's heaven-defying nature was discovered by him again. Yang Dingtian was very vile, and directly took down this energy essence again. This was much larger than the 9-headed snakes. It would definitely bring him a very great breakthrough. After putting the energy essence into his clothes, Yang Dingtian's gaze immediately looked towards Yao Li. While Yao Li and the rest were really thoroughly stunned. Was this still a human? He actually really finished off a rank 11 flame demon by himself. And furthermore, he was completely unscathed. This was also too heaven-defying, right? Chapter 8:13. Yang Dingtian also did not expect that he could actually kill such a powerful flame demon alone. After putting away the energy essence, Yang Dingtian said to the surprised Yao Li, "Madam Yao Li, you saw it too. Not only was I able to discover these elemental creatures very early, but my combat power is also very high. Let me join your team, how about it?" The reason why Yang Dingtian still wanted to join the team was that he discovered that it was really difficult to move around alone in the second dark realm. Moreover, he had many questions that needed help answering. Also, if he encountered a half-step sage elemental creature, he could not kill it alone at all. Therefore, it was safer to join the team. After hearing Yang Dingtian's words, the purple-haired girl's beautiful eyes immediately lit up. She looked at her elder sister, hoping that Yao Li would quickly agree. Unexpectedly, Yao Li shot a cold glance at Yang Dingtian and said, "No need, no need. Frivolous, insolent." Then, she turned around and left, saying, "Let's go, what are you still standing there for?" Immediately, under the purple-haired girl's reluctant gaze, Yao Li's 5-person team left the cave without consulting anyone. Yang Dingtian's lungs were really about to explode. Fuck. You killed the Balrog all by yourself. You guys are the ones who are benefiting from me joining your team. Alright? I bent my body with great difficulty, and did not stoop to your level, begging to join the team. In the end, my warm face was stuck to a cold butt. Not only did she reject him, she actually said that he was frivolous and insolent. Yang Dingtian swore that the next time he saw this woman being gang-raped, he would not blink an eye and would absolutely not help. After being angry, Yang Dingtian also immediately left this flame demon's cave. That was because every cave would attract a lot of people. Once another team barged in, they would kill. After returning to the ground, Yang Dingtian found a remote corner, then began to devour the energy essence in his hand. First, he devoured the 9-headed snake's energy essence. This was also the energy essence of an infinite grandmaster. After devouring, Yang Dingtian's vital energy sea trembled, then began to expand. Unfortunately, there was still not enough energy. After expanding to a certain extent, it stopped. Thus, Yang Dingtian once again began to devour the flame fiend's energy essence. His chi sea rapidly expanded. Boom! His entire body and divine sense sank into nothingness. Yang Dingtian had broken through 8 times. Then, he continued to devour the flame demon's energy essence. The incomparably rich energy directly entered Yang Dingtian's chi sea. At this moment, Yang Dingtian discovered it. The energy essence of this elemental creature could be considered as pure Xian qi, but at the same time, it was not. Because its degree of density was much, much greater. After profound qi entered the energy sea, it would be compressed and condensed, and then it would be added to the construction of the entire energy sea world. As for this energy essence, it would directly enter the sea of qi. There was no need to compress and condense it. It was a body of energy, with a very high concentration. Moreover, the most valuable thing was that it could smoothly pass through the profound veins, and enter the sea of qi, unlike profound energy, where too much of it would cause the profound veins to explode. Soon, Yang Dingtian's sea of qi expanded once more. When it expanded to the maximum, it suddenly felt weak. Yang Dingtian's heart sank. This level 11 flame demon's energy essence was indeed not enough for him to break through 9 times. Boom! In the end, this flame demon's energy essence rushed in at the last moment. It actually caused the sea of qi sea to explode. Then his entire body and divine sense sank into nothingness again. Yang Dingtian successfully broke through 9 times. Hence, Yang Dingtian returned to that question. Exactly how many times did he need to break through before he could reach half-sage? This was already the 9th time? Personally, he felt that there should be a qualitative change at the 10th time. After Yang Dingtian finished recovering, the sky was about to brighten. At this moment, it was almost the safest time. This was because the high nobles of the Demon Fox tribe would recuperate in the deep caves during the day, and only come out at night. After the sun rose, the entire second dark realm seemed to be on fire again. The entire world was burning. Yang Dingtian did not stay any longer. He hurriedly dug a cave that was tens of meters deep and hid inside. The ground was getting softer and softer. Yang Dingtian used his emperor-grade soul sword and easily dug a cave that was tens of meters deep. Then by hiding inside, he could basically avoid the extreme heat. Of course, the magma would slowly flow down. But in less than 10 meters, it would solidify and then block the entrance of the cave. Even in the cave, it was getting hotter and hotter. At its highest point, it should be more than 100 degrees. But compared to the thousands of degrees on the ground, it was much more comfortable. He could pass through with a little ice qi. Yang Dingtian took a pill and closed his eyes to rest. While he was resting, suddenly, he felt a commotion below him. It was as if something was digging a hole quickly. Yang Dingtian was shocked. He immediately pulled out his sword as if he was facing a great enemy. Swish, 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 swish. The sound of digging and chiseling approached quickly. Could it be that another team had dug a hole nearby? This was too close. Yang Dingtian immediately used his invisibility mystic skill and completely disappeared from the cave. Bang! Suddenly, the rock under his feet cracked open. Then a huge black fiery dragon shot out. It turned out that it was digging a hole. Immediately after, Yang Dingtian discovered that this fire dragon was already riddled with wounds and was on the verge of death. It was running for its life because it only had a small half of its body left. But even if it was a small half, it was still dozens of meters long and 4 to 5 meters thick. It was a huge monster. It could be considered a snake, but it was 1 level higher than a snake. It was a bit like a dragon, but it was definitely not a dragon. It must have been beaten up in the cave. In the end, it took advantage of the dawn to escape with all its might. It wanted to return to the ground and absorb the energy of the endless magma. Yang Dingtian hesitated. Should he take the opportunity to do this? One had to know that this fire dragon should be very, very strong. At least, it was stronger than the flame demon that he had fought. However, it was already seriously injured. Most of its body was gone, and it was on the verge of death. It would be a pity if he didn't take the opportunity to do it. However, if he took the opportunity to counterattack before it died, it might take his life. In the end, Yang Dingtian still couldn't hold back his restless heart. Whoosh! Like lightning, he suddenly pierced the head of the fire dragon with his sword. In an instant, the fire dragon stopped running for its life. Then it completely froze in the cave. It looked at Yang Dingtian with eyes like fire and blood. Then, its body suddenly burst forth with an incomparably powerful energy. This energy was more powerful and terrifying than that of the Hydra and the flame demon combined. Was it a half-saint? Yang Dingtian really didn't know. In short, Yang Dingtian was suddenly suppressed by this energy and found that his whole body couldn't move. My life is over? Seeing the fire dragon's eyes as if it was going to devour him, Yang Dingtian's whole body turned cold. Boom! Just as the fire dragon was about to devour him, the remaining small half of its body, including its head, completely turned into ashes and suddenly exploded. It had died just like that. After showing the energy to crush Yang Dingtian, it seemed that it could tear Yang Dingtian into pieces in an instant, and then it exploded itself. The so-called arrow at the end of its flight Perhaps this was what it meant. This strong crossbow could have easily torn a rabbit into pieces, but when it was 1 millimeter away, it fell down by itself. As a result, Yang Dingtian's life was saved. Then, a huge energy essence floated in the air. It was purple. Yang Dingtian had a lot of energy essences before, green ones, blue ones, and orange ones with flames. However, he had never seen a purple energy essence. Yang Dingtian grabbed this energy essence, and suddenly felt an unprecedented surge of energy. He didn't know it clearly, but he didn't dare to swallow it. He quickly put it into the energy jade box, and then put it into the space ring. Just at this time, suddenly, there was the sound of digging next to him again. Could there be more elemental beasts? This time, Yang Dingtian didn't dare to take the opportunity to launch a sneak attack. Just now, he was lucky that the fire dragon exploded at the last moment. Otherwise, Yang Dingtian would have lost his life. This time, Yang Dingtian decided that even if it was a dying elemental creature, he would never attack and let it rush out of the ground. Therefore, Yang Dingtian quickly turned invisible again, and then stayed motionless. A few minutes later, stones splashed in the cave, and then a total of 20 people rushed out of the cave dug by the fire dragon. There were 20 people, and there were several semi-saint experts among them. The rest were all great grandmasters. This troop was definitely strong and well-trained. Suddenly, a semi-saint expert said, "Young master, the fire dragon is dead. Look, there are metal fragments of the fire dragon everywhere. And this demon fox aristocrat dressed in yellow brocade clothes should be the young master of some clan." He squatted down and touched the fragments of the fire dragon's self-destruction. His breath suddenly became hurried, and he said, Then where is the energy essence? No, it's gone. It should have been taken away by someone. The semi-saint expert said. The young master in yellow brocade suddenly let out a furious roar. Go, find everyone within a radius of a few hundred li. Even if they're hiding underground, dig them out for me. The young master in yellow brocade said angrily, We have been tracking a 15th level fire dragon for a year and a half. 5 people died before we finally killed it, but it fell into the hands of others. Even if we have to kill them all, we must take back the fire dragon's essence. Yang Dingtian on the side trembled. The elemental creature that he picked up was actually 15th level? Of course, Yang Dingtian didn't know what level it was. But he knew that the fire dragon's essence that made him break through the 8th and 9th level was only 11th level. And he was so lucky that the fire dragon's essence that he picked up was 15th level. How strong was it? How many times could it help him break through? Yes. After hearing the young master's order, more than 20 experts rushed to the ground like lightning and started a carpet search of the area within a few hundred miles. Yang Dingtian was still invisible, and he didn't move at all. And the young master in yellow brocade was still in the cave, only 2 steps away from Yang Dingtian. He was still trembling with anger, and he muttered to himself, 15th level, 15th level. I haven't seen a 15th level elemental creature in 20 to 30 years. Whoever wants to steal my fire dragon's essence, I will kill his entire family. Then he gradually calmed himself down. 190 years. There are 198 years left. As long as I break through to the king level, I will kill Yao Qi and take Jia away. The young master in yellow brocade gritted his teeth and said coldly, Jia, you are mine. Yao Qi, I will tear you into pieces. At this moment, Yang Dingtian was even more shocked. He didn't expect the person in front of him to be his rival in love. Of course, he didn't know of his existence. His imaginary enemy was still Yao Qi. Of course, he didn't know that Yao Qi was already dead. It seemed that enemies were bound to meet on a narrow road. As for the monarch level that he spoke of, in the Little Western Paradise, it meant a saint-level expert. For almost a few hundred years, there hadn't been a saint-level expert in humans. And in Little Western Paradise, saint-level experts were also the highest-level experts. There weren't many saint-level experts in the entire Little Western Paradise. And this young master in yellow brocade was a saint-level expert. He needed to spend 200 years to break through to the saint level. Now Yang Dingtian finally knew why it would take 200 years to cultivate in the Dark Realm. It was because tracking a high-level elemental creature would take a very, very long time. They had been in the Dark Realm for more than a year, and Yao Li's team had only defeated a Hydra. And this young master in yellow brocade, and his team of more than 20 people, had only defeated a 15th level fire dragon, and they had failed. Next, Yang Dingtian desperately hoped that this saint-level love rival would leave quickly. Once he discovered him, he would definitely tear him apart alive. However, this suitor of Jia's did not seem to have any intention of leaving, and he continued to dig the cave. Yang Dingtian carefully hid in a corner. This love rival had dug a cave that was dozens of square meters in size, and then sat down cross-legged, waiting for his subordinates to report. "All right, if you don't leave, I will," Yang Dingtian said in his heart. However, the exit above his head had been sealed by the lava. Of course, it was easy to break it, but then he would be discovered. Then, time went by just like that. Yang Dingtian hid in a corner, unable to move, and that love rival sat in the middle motionless. More than 2 hours later, the entrance that was sealed above suddenly broke open. Then a few demon fox experts flew in with a whoosh, reporting to young master, "Within a radius of more than 100 miles, we only found these 5 people, and they have all been captured." Yang Dingtian looked and was stunned again. It was really a narrow road for enemies. The ones who were captured were Yao Li and the other 4. This was really an ill-fated relationship. Every single time, they would meet each other. Chapter 8:14. Enemies are bound to meet Princess Yao Li. The yellow-robed man's eyes lit up when he saw Yao Li. He did not hide his evil look. "Yao Lung, are you crazy? Why did you capture me for no reason?" Yao Li said angrily. "Hand over the fire dragon's energy essence." The yellow-robed young master Yao Lung said directly. "What fire dragon's energy essence?" "I don't know." Yao Li said. "Don't pretend you don't know." Yao Lung said coldly. "We spent more than a year and 5 people died to kill this level 15 fire dragon. In the end, it was killed after it escaped, and its energy essence was stolen. There was only one team, in a radius of 200 miles. If it wasn't you, who else could it be?" Yao Li's gaze instantly changed slightly, and she said, "I, Yao Li, am a woman of my word. If I took it, I would definitely admit it. But if I didn't take it, don't try to frame me. And don't forget, if it wasn't for my Golden Ah clan and Shadow Spear clan, your Moro clan would never be able to enter the 9 great clans. You offended me today. Aren't you afraid you'll lose the Moro clan's heir after you go out?" "Idiot." Yang Dingtian cursed in his heart after Yao Li said this. "Isn't this forcing others to kill you?" "Is that so?" Yao Ling said fiercely. "We have to stay in the Dark Realm for 200 years. If I kill all of you here, who will know? And you, Yao Li, aren't valued much in the Golden Ah clan. Otherwise, you wouldn't have failed to get the inheritance rights." Yao Li's sore spot was touched. Her cold and beautiful face twitched. She said, "Only a coward would hope for the inheritance rights of the clan. I want to become strong and go out to help my brother achieve great things." "Ha ha ha." Yao Ling laughed. "How ambitious. It's better if you didn't mention Yao Qi. Now that you mention him, you've made me hate him even more. If it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have had to suffer the shame of breaking off the engagement." Yang Dingtian was surprised. So this guy was engaged to Jia. It couldn't be. Even though Yao Lung's cultivation base could be considered to be extremely strong among the young demon fox race, his character and intelligence were rather ordinary. Why would Yao Nu II take a fancy to him? Annul the engagement? Yao Li sneered and said, "Stop dreaming. Don't think that Jia and Yao Nu will take a liking to you just because you've become the 3rd young expert of the Fox Demon clan. The so-called marriage is just your wishful thinking, because you are the most loyal followers of the Shadow Spear race. When you went to ask for the marriage, leader Yao Nu couldn't refuse, so he dragged it out. Furthermore, your father agreed to the alliance of the 3 tribes to promote my brother, Yao Qi. The Moro tribe even benefited greatly from this. Yet, you're here talking about the shame of breaking off the engagement. For example, If it weren't for the help of the Golden Ah clan and the Shadow Spear clan, how could a mere clan like yours enter the Dark Realm? The moment he said that, Yao Lung was instantly enraged. He said, how am I inferior to Yao Qi? I'm 200 years younger than him, but my cultivation is almost the same as his. In the younger generation of the Fox Demon clan, who can compare to me? Ooh, Yao Li, that idiot, is older than me, but his cultivation is inferior to mine. How am I not good enough for Jia? Yao Li said coldly, Your Excellency, Yao Li is straightforward, upright and determined. Although his cultivation is inferior to yours, how can someone like you compare to him? Instantly, Yao Lung was even more furious. His face twisted as he laughed. Good. Jia looked down on me. Yao Qi looked down on me. And now even you dare to look down on me? Today you're in my hands. Either you hand over the fire dragon's essence, or I'll rape and kill both of you. Yao Qi slept with my woman, and I'll sleep with his woman. This is fair. The moment he said that, Yao Li and Yao Zi's expressions changed drastically. Yao Lung, you dare? Yao Li said. Aren't you afraid that the Golden Ah clan and the Shadow Spear clan will work together to force your father to cut you into pieces? If I rape and kill you, who will know? Yao Lung said. At this moment, the black-haired man beside Yao Li said, Your Excellency Yao Lung, we really didn't take your fire dragon's essence. If you let us go, we'll pretend that nothing happened. Moreover, we'll avoid you when we see you in the future. Although there are only 5 of us here, our Golden Ah clan's Lord Yao Ming is also in the Dark Realm. His forces are stronger than yours. Ha ha ha. Yao Lung laughed and said, Brother Yao Ming must hate Yao Qi even more. He has always treated Jia as his exclusive property. Previously, he fought with me to the death. In the end, Yao Qi took advantage of him. Although you're his sister, I'm afraid that even if you die in front of him, he won't even spare you a glance. Otherwise, how could you, the princess of the Golden Ah clan, only have 4 Tom, Dick and Harry by your side? These words obviously touched Yao Li's sore spot. Her eyes darkened, and then she quickly covered it with coldness. Then Yao Lung, the young master of the Moro clan, looked at the black-haired man and said, Bolu, your loyal dog is really infatuated. He'd rather follow Yao Li, a girl that no one cares about, than follow young master Yao Ming. But don't be delusional. No matter how outstanding you are, you're just a servant, a loyal dog. When these words were said, the black-haired man Bolu trembled and his eyes dimmed. All right, let's not talk nonsense. Yao Lung said, I'll start counting down from 10. Either you take out the fire dragon's essence, or I'll rape and kill the 2 princesses of the Golden Ah clan. Then, I'll evaporate all 3 servants. No one will know anything. 10, 9, 8. Yao Lung, the young master of the Moro clan, began to count down. In front of his powerful forces, Yao Li's team had no power to resist at all. Yao Li suddenly gritted her teeth and reversed her energy sea. She was going to detonate her energy sea and die together. You want to detonate your energy sea? Dream on. Yao Lung sneered. Then he easily locked all the profound veins in Yao Li's body and continued to count down. Yao Li gritted her teeth and bled. She didn't expect to suffer such a hellish calamity in the Dark Realm today. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yao Lung, the young master of the Moro clan, finished counting down. Then, he directly extended his demonic claw toward Yao Li's collar and suddenly tore it apart. Her purple-blue robe was immediately torn apart, revealing her snow-white shoulders. Also, her chest was forcefully wrapped tightly. Yet another one. Her breasts were clearly raging, but she was forcefully made into a peaceful princess. Yao Li gritted her teeth and said, Yao Lung, if you attack me, I won't resist. I can even cooperate with you. But let my sister go. She's still young. Young? Ha ha ha. Yao Lung laughed loudly and said, How is she young? I haven't seen many women bigger than her. As for the youngest Yao Zi, when she heard this statement, her face blushed before turning pale. However, she still gritted her teeth and didn't beg for mercy. This was out of Yang Dingtian's expectations. She was much more resolute than he had imagined. Sister, don't beg him. For this kind of person, the more you beg him, the more perverted he becomes. Yao Zi said. That's right, that's right. The more you beg me, the more I humiliate you. Ha ha ha. Yao Lung stared at Yao Li's tightly bound chest and said with a wicked smile, "You've been pierced so hard. How big is it? Come, let me take a look. Then, I'll have a good competition with your sister. Loyal dog Bo Lu, you haven't seen your mistress' body yet, right? I'll let you have it today." Then, Yao Lung grabbed the silk in front of Yao Li's chest and was about to tear it off to completely free her chest. "Stop!" the black-haired Bo Lu roared. His profound veins were locked, and the anger and helplessness in his heart had caused his entire face to twist and his eyes to bleed. Yao Li was the goddess he had dreamed of for countless years. Now that he saw her being humiliated, he really wanted to die. "Yao Lung, I know where the essence of your fire dragon is. Let us go and I'll tell you," Bo Lu said. "Bo Lu, shut up," Yao Li said coldly. "Princess, I have to say it. Why are you hiding it for that person?" Bo Lu said loudly, "I'm not hiding it for him. But I definitely won't compromise with a lowly beast like Yao Lung." Yao Li said angrily, "But I can't watch you get hurt," Bo Lu said. Then, he looked at Yao Lung and said, "I'll tell you who took the essence of the fire dragon. You let go of Princess Yao Li and her sister." "You first," Yao Lung said. "If I say it first, you definitely won't let them go," Bo Lu said. Yao Lung smiled and said, "Smart. But if you don't say it, I'll humiliate your mistress in front of you right now. So are you going to say it or not?" After saying that, Yao Lung took off his clothes and was about to use the most primitive method of men to humiliate Princess Yao Li. "Stop," Bo Lu said sternly. "He's a human. I don't know his name. Not long ago, he killed an 11th rank flame demon by himself. He definitely didn't go far. You said that we're the only ones in a 200-mile radius. Since the essence of the fire dragon isn't with us, it must be in the hands of that human." Then Bo Lu said, "Now I can bring you guys to find that human. He definitely can't run far." After Yang Dingtian heard Bo Lu's words, he actually couldn't bring up any resentment towards him, even though he directly sold him out. However, he didn't do it for himself, but for Yao Li and her sister. This was a kind of precious loyalty and infatuation. "Ha ha, are you kidding?" Yao Lung laughed loudly and said, "Only the Demon Fox clan entered the dark domain. Where did the human come from? Ridiculous." Bo Lu said, "He's indeed a human, but the silver dragon bloodline in his body is richer than ours. Moreover, if I'm not wrong, he should be the current leader of the Tiando League, Yang Dingtian." At this time, not only Yao Lung, even Yang Dingtian was shocked. This Bo Lu couldn't be underestimated. He actually guessed that he was Yang Dingtian. How could it be? He didn't seem to have said his name and identity before. Yang Dingtian, what bullshit? The leader of the Tiando League? What kind of random organization is that? Ridiculous. Yao Lung directly showed the whites of his eyes, as if he was a martial arts fanatic. He also had the ridiculous pride of the Demon Fox clan. He instinctively despised humans. The Tiando League was already the strongest organization of humans, but it was nothing in his mouth. "All of you go out and search the area within 1,000 miles. You must capture this bullshit human Yang Dingtian for me," Yao Lung suddenly ordered. "Yes." Immediately, the 20 or so experts under Yao Lung shouted in unison, "Young master, I'd better stay and accompany you." "What if?" The half-saint expert beside Yao Lung stepped forward and said, "What if? What if?" Yao Lung said sternly, "These 5 trash in front of me, even if they worked together, they wouldn't be my opponent. Moreover, all of their profound veins are sealed. What if?" At this moment, this young master Mo Luo's other flaw was revealed. He was extremely arrogant and conceited. "Go immediately, before that lowly human runs too far. Search the area within 1,000 miles. If you don't find him, don't come back," Yao Lung said angrily. "Yes." Immediately, the 20 or so experts all left the cave and flew to the surface to search for Yang Dingtian. As for Yang Dingtian, he took advantage of the concealment when the 20 over experts left, and used the Devil's Spirit Mist cloak to flash and fly out of the cave. After returning to the surface, he immediately saw the 20 or so experts of the Mo Luo clan forming a circle and flying in all directions to search. As for Yang Dingtian, after they were far away, he also flew tens of thousands of meters away. At this moment, inside the cave, Yao Lung looked at Yao Li's cold and beautiful face and said covetously, "Princess Yao Li, since we have nothing to do, why don't we find something to do and have some fun? Then let's continue. Where were we just now? Oh right, you two sisters should compete and see whose breasts are bigger." Therefore, Yao Lung extended his evil claws to Yao Li's chest. Bo Lu said angrily, "Yao Lung, didn't I already say? Stop it." "But I didn't promise not to humiliate your mistress." Yao Lung laughed and said, "How about this after I'm done? I'll give you a good time too." "That's settled." "You beast, stop it, stop it." Bo Lu roared wildly and struggled desperately, but it was completely useless. Yao Lung grabbed Yao Li's scarf and pulled it hard. Suddenly, Yao Lung's eyes widened. He didn't expect the size to be so shocking. At this moment, he couldn't help tearing off Yao Li's underwear and was about to pounce on her. Yao Li gritted her teeth and blood flowed from the corner of her mouth, but she didn't move. I'll kill you, I'll kill you," Bo Lu roared wildly. At this moment, there was a sudden violent vibration from the ground. Then a strong sound wave came in. "Ha ha ha, ha ha ha, half-saint energy essence, I'm rich, I'm rich." Yang Dingtian's voice directly transmitted into the cave using a special energy wave. When Yao Lung heard, his expression immediately changed drastically, and then a burst of ecstasy welled up. Although the beauty in front of him made him drool, compared to it, the rank 15 energy essence was more important. As for the beauty, he could wait until he killed that human and seized the fire flood dragon's essence before enjoying it. At this time, he immediately regretted sending all the experts out. Now there wasn't even a person left to stay behind. However, these people's mystic meridians were locked and presumably couldn't run. Hence, Yao Lung quickly flew out and chased in the direction of that voice. In the end, that voice got further and further away, and Yao Lung also chased further and further away. Then, Yang Dingtian used the Devil Spirit Mistcloak flash art and turned back. He suddenly sneaked back into this cave. After returning, Yao Li and the rest immediately had their eyes wide open, completely stunned. And that purple-haired girl's beautiful eyes completely shot out a bright light of pleasant surprise. As for Yang Dingtian, when he first saw the astonishing size of Yao Li's front, he couldn't help but be stunned. It was difficult for her to be able to pierce it so flat before. As for me, I originally didn't want to come and save you, evil woman, but I can't bear to see your sister get hurt. I'm also touched by Brother Bola's loyalty and infatuation. Otherwise, I'll really let you be raped and killed by that beast first, Yang Dingtian said to Yao Li fiercely. Then, he directly grabbed the two sisters with one hand and directly tied up the other three men with the other hand. Just like this, he hugged the woman and carried the men on his back, directly carrying 5 people, and suddenly rushed out of the cave with a flash. Next, as if he didn't need mystic chi at all, he flashed and fled in the opposite direction of Yao Lung. Run, run, run. As for the 5 people on his back, they were completely stunned. Was this still the speed of a human? It was already so fast that they couldn't even see clearly. No matter how high Yao Lung and the rest's cultivation was, they couldn't catch up. Yang Dingtian almost exhausted all of his mystic chi in one breath, and threw them thousands of miles away. Only when he felt that it was almost safe did he stop. After completely solidifying the few square meters of magma under his feet, and then releasing an energy barrier of demon spirit fiend fire, Yang Dingtian put the 5 people down. Yao Li covered her chest with all her strength and said, "Human, return my silken robe to me." Yang Dingtian casually threw the robe on her body. Yao Li turned around and once again used all her strength to flatten her chest, and then put on the robe. Yang Dingtian said, "Oh right, I don't have the ability to undo the seal on your mystic meridians." "You can," the purple-haired woman said. Yang Dingtian immediately looked over. She was so embarrassed that her face was flushed red. She said in a low voice, "Use the energy essence to break open the seal on our mystic meridians. My sister has the energy essence." "Then come directly," Yang Dingtian said. "I need your help," the purple-haired girl said. You need to use the mystic fire to melt the energy essence, and then force it into our energy reserve. Only then can you break open the seal on our mystic meridians. What kind of intimate? Yang Dingtian asked in surprise. The purple-haired girl nodded shyly. This was no ordinary skin-to-skin intimacy. How about this? You help me break open first, and then I will break open sister. Sister will then help big brother Bola break open, okay? Yao Zi said shyly in a low voice. Although her big blinking eyes were filled with shyness, they were also filled with boldness. No, don't touch my sister. Help me break open first. Yao Li said. Anyway, I don't care if I've been touched by a man. Yang Dingtian was completely speechless. Such a touching thing was forcefully made tasteless by her words, please. Chapter 8:15. There's no need for that, Yang Dingtian said. Then, he took one of Yao Li's energy essences and burned it with the mystic fire. Immediately, the energy essence dispersed and turned into an extremely rich energy. Yang Dingtian used the million spirit demon fire's infinite wraiths to control the direction of the energy. Then, he struck it toward Yao Li's energy reserve in her lower abdomen. In an instant, the extremely rich and intense energy essence broke through the seal on her energy reserve and unlocked her mystic meridians. Then, Yang Dingtian attacked Yao Zi's energy reserve in her lower abdomen as usual. There was also Bo Lu, A One and A Wu, two infinite great grandmasters. In an instant, all 5 of their mystic meridians were unlocked. Seeing that Yang Dingtian did not take advantage of the situation, Bo Lu had a good impression of him. He immediately knelt down and said, "Thank you for saving my life. I am extremely ashamed that I betrayed you in front of Yao Lung." Yang Dingtian waved his hand and said, "You didn't do it for yourself. You did it to save others. This is a very valuable loyalty. I don't blame you." Bo Lu bowed meticulously. Then, Yang Dingtian looked at Yao Li with a mocking expression and said, "What do you plan to do next?" Yao Li immediately frowned. Bo Lu hesitated for a moment and said, "Why don't we meet up with young Master Yao Ming? That way, Yao Lung won't dare to act rashly." "No," Yao Li said firmly. "I would rather die in Yao Lung's hands than beg Yao Ming for mercy. Father must have lost his mind to let the son of Chairman Yao Qi, who hates him, be his successor." Bo Lu could not help but say, "The chairman's term is only 100 years. At most, it's 200 years. Yao Li said loudly, "But Yao Qi is different. You don't understand his great talents and great strategy." Then, Yao Li looked at Yang Dingtian. "Yang Dingtian, as the leader of the Tiando League, you should understand, right?" Yang Dingtian nodded ambiguously. It was impossible for him to tell Yang Dingtian that Yao Qi was already dead. Otherwise, this woman would immediately go crazy. Like Jia, she was Yao Qi's crazy follower and admirer. Therefore, he did not hesitate to leave his family and pledge his loyalty to Yao Qi. "In short, I will definitely not beg Yao Ming for pity. If you want to go, then go," Yao Li said resolutely. "If my sister doesn't go, I won't go either," Yao Zi said. "I hate Yao Ming. Since you won't go, I won't go either," Bola said. A One and A Wu said, "We are the sword attendants of the Purple Princess. If she doesn't go, we won't go either." Yao Li said, "All right, then it's decided. We'll continue cultivating alone. The dark realm is so big. We just have to be careful and avoid the demonic cold. I don't believe that he will abandon his cultivation and keep chasing after us." Yao Zi suddenly gritted her teeth and said, "Sister, I want Mr. Yang Dingtian to join us." "No, I want to ask him to join us." Then, Yao Zi opened her eyes and looked at Yang Dingtian. Are you Mr. Yang Dingtian?" "I am." Yang Dingtian instantly looked at Bolu and said, "Brother Bolu, how do you know that I'm a human?" Bolu said, "Actually, you're more famous than you think in Little Western Paradise. I've seen the chaos times in your portrait." "I see," Bolu suddenly said. "Actually, I'm very envious of humans. Even if they're from the bottom, they can still become leaders." Yang Dingtian understood. He was reminiscing about his past. Little Western Paradise was also divided into 2 types of high-level worlds. One was the high nobles, the other was the high-level bloodline. The two of them were not equivalent. Firstly, the high nobles were definitely high-level bloodline users. The Silver Dragon bloodline was high, and their martial arts talent was high, but they might not practice martial arts. As for high-level bloodline users, they might not be high nobles. In Little Western Paradise, social classes were very fixed. Only the descendants of nobles could be nobles. The Bola family was also considered a high-level bloodline, but they had been the sword servants of the Jaina royal family for generations. This could never change. Of course, this kind of servant actually had a very high status. In the entire Little Western Paradise, they were considered to be in charge. However, servants were still servants. Of course, there was a better way to describe them, servants. Then, Bolu said seriously, "Your Highness, I also hope to invite Mr. Yang Dingtian to become a very, very important member of us." Immediately, the four of them turned their gazes to Yaoli. Yaozi held it in for a while and said, "Sister, if you don't agree, I'll wen Awu, and I will follow Mr. Yang Dingtian. You and Bolu can go together." As soon as she said that, Yaoli's eyes flashed with anger. She glared fiercely at Yaozi, feeling that she was too unreserved. Then, Yaoli bowed deeply to Yang Dingtian and said, "Yaoli of the Jaina royal family sincerely invites Mr. Yang Dingtian to become a member of my team. Also, you will have a quarter of the spoils in the future." At this moment, Yaoli revealed her cuter nature. She was very straightforward and not arrogant. She did not say high and mighty that she wanted him to join. Instead, she lowered her body and seriously invited him. Perhaps she had always been this serious. "I'm willing to join your team." Yang Dingtian bowed back and returned the greeting. "Wow, that's great," Yaozi said excitedly. "We can finally be together." As soon as she said that, Yaoli's expression turned ugly. She glared fiercely at her and then said to Yang Dingtian, "Mister, please forgive me. My sister is too young. She has only been in human form for a short time. She is only 16 or 17 years old for you humans." Yang Dingtian said seriously, "I know. Miss Azi is lively and cute. She is the most lovable sister. She reminds me of one of my daughters. She is already 11 years old this year." Yang Dingtian's words were undoubtedly expressing his feelings. He would definitely not have an affair with Yaozi. Yaoli was very satisfied with Yang Dingtian's answer. Then she said directly, "All right, let's head north again. The further we are from Yaolong, the better." Then, the six of them flew under the scorching sun. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian could not help but put on his sunglasses. When Yaozi saw the sunglasses, although she did not say anything, she kept looking at Yang Dingtian. She was very curious and envious of his sunglasses. Therefore, Yang Dingtian took out 5 sunglasses that he had made and distributed them to everyone. "This is called Magic Mirror. Wear it, and you will be able to see clearly in the day. You will not be afraid of the glaring sun." Yaozi immediately cheered. She could not wait to pick the most delicate and light one and put it on her delicate face. Yaoli glared at her, and then took a pair as well. The other 3 also took a pair. After putting on the sunglasses, everyone could not help but exclaim. Indeed, they were not afraid of the glaring sun. With this, they could walk on the ground in the day. The 6 of them continued to run north for another 2,000 miles. Finally, the sky darkened. Then, the 6 of them sat down cross-legged to absorb the energy essence and recover their celestial chi. Yaoli showed extraordinary responsibility. She was in charge of keeping watch. Yang Dingtian took out the 15-level fire dragon's essence. The surrounding people immediately looked envious. "Your Excellency Yaoli, I have a few questions that I would like to ask you," Yang Dingtian said. "Go ahead," Yaoli said. "What do you mean by the 11th and 15th level?" Yang Dingtian asked. Yaoli said, "You humans are very careless about the division of martial arts. It's very crude. For example, a 9-star 9th level Grandmaster is very far away from a half-saint, but you guys are only in the middle. In our division, a 9th level powerhouse is equivalent to a 9-star 9th level Grandmaster. Only at 15 level is equivalent to a half-saint. There are 6 levels in between," Yang Dingtian said. In other words, The 15-level fire dragon's essence in my hand is a half-saint? Then what should my current cultivation be equivalent to? Yaoli said. How many times have you broken through after becoming a 9-star 9th-level grandmaster? 9 times, Yang Dingtian said. Then you are now a 9th level powerhouse. You are only 1 step away from the 10th level, Yaoli said. Yang Dingtian was stunned. At this time, he finally knew how far he was from a half-saint. The 15 level was only a half-saint. He was only a 9th level powerhouse. There were still 5 levels away. It was really very, very far away. Then, Your Excellency Yaoli, what is your current cultivation? Yang Dingtian asked. 5th level, 11th level, Yaoli said. Then why was it so difficult to kill the 9-headed snake? Yang Dingtian asked. Yaoli said. Demonic beasts of the same level are originally stronger than civilized creatures, and elemental creatures are stronger than demonic beasts of the same level. Therefore, you killed a rank 11 flame demon by yourself, shocking us to the core. Then with my cultivation, how long will it take to break through to a half-saint? Yang Dingtian asked. Just by cultivating in the dark realm? Yaoli asked. Yes. Yang Dingtian nodded. At least 100 years, Yaoli said. Yang Dingtian suddenly clicked his tongue, and then he recalled in his mind. Except for Wu Duozi and Wu Yuming, who used the evil spirit energy to break through in an instant, the rest of Wu Yu Willingzi, Hai Xen and Poisa, without exception, all spent more than 100 years. Now when Yang Dingtian recalled Zhu Qingzhu's combat strength, he realized that he wasn't a 9-star 9th grade great master. Instead, he was a limitless great master who had broken through multiple times. The reason why he left the world was probably to break through to the half-saint realm. There was also Duge Xiao, who was also called a 9-star 9th level grandmaster. In fact, he was an infinite grandmaster who had broken through many times. However, those who had not entered the half-saint realm were all called 9-star 9th level grandmasters. This concept was really harmful. Yaoli continued. In fact, the dark realm is not suitable for you humans to cultivate. The lifespan of humans is too short. You need a great fortune to break through to a half-saint in your limited lifespan. Because we, the Fox Demon Clan, have almost infinite lifespan, the dark realm is our first choice. Yang Dingtian's eyes narrowed. Yaoli too had urged Yang Dingtian to come to the dark realm. Then perhaps he had other intentions? Because he already had a grandson who was a demigod descendant, he absolutely did not want any more demigod descendants to appear in the Little Western Paradise. Or to be more honest, he did not want Yang Dingtian to appear in the Little Western Paradise again. Yang Dingtian could not help but ask, why does it take so much time to cultivate in the dark realm? Swallowing energy essence is almost the most direct cultivation method I have seen. Yaoli glanced at him and said, swallowing energy essence is the most direct, but there is only one harvest every 1 or 2 years. How much can you break through? Unless you are like Yao Ming and Yao Lung, who only gave all the energy essence obtained by more than 20 experts to one person. Understood, Yang Dingtian completely understood. Only very few people could advance by leaps and bounds in the dark realm. Yang Dingtian asked, then how much energy essence do I need to break through once now? Yaoli said, about 20 times. That is to say, the energy essence needs to be 20 times your cultivation base to break through once. Because you know these energy essences are all used to build the world of your Sea of Qi. In other words, a mid-level 11th level energy essence is barely enough for you to break through once. Then what about my 5th level energy essence? Yang Dingtian asked. Yaoli said, don't use this 5th level energy essence now. Use it when you are about to break through to the 13th level. It can help you break through to the 13th level. If you use it now, it will be a huge waste, because your Sea of Qi cannot contain such a large amount of energy. Understood, Yang Dingtian asked. Does that mean that after I break through to the 13th level, I will need at least 100 half-saint energy essences to break through to the half-saint level? Even if it is not that much, it is not far from it, Yaoli said. Yang Dingtian sucked in a breath of cold air again, and then put away the 5th level energy essence. Then, He began to use mystic gathering pills to recover his battle mystic chi. After only 15 minutes, he had finished recovering. Okay, I will guard you. You go and recover your mystic chi, Yang Dingtian said. Yao Li nodded. Then, she sat cross-legged and began to recover her mystic chi. More than an hour later, she used pills to recover her battle mystic chi. At this time, the 6 of them had completely accumulated their battle mystic chi. In other words, they were full of health and could fight at any time. Okay, let's go. Yao Li said. Search every movement within 300 miles and find any elemental creatures that might exist. Then, the 6 of them moved out at lightning speed. Yao Li whispered to Yang Dingtian. Yang Dingtian, you have to be mentally prepared. Searching for elemental creatures is a very, very long process. You may not find anything for a year or 2. Not necessarily, Yang Dingtian said. Then it unleashed tens of millions of wraiths of the 100 million spirit demonic flames, which filled every corner within 100 miles. It could be said that Yang Dingtian's search method was more than 100 times more efficient than theirs. Today was really Yang Dingtian's lucky day. Only an hour later, the wraiths in the northwest corner felt energy fluctuations. Yang Dingtian said, 95 miles northwest there is something. Everyone was shocked and in disbelief. These elemental creatures were deep underground. How could they be discovered from 100 miles away? Even a half-saint could not do that. So much so that Yao Li glared at Yang Dingtian and felt that he was bluffing. However, it was their first time after all, so they gave Yang Dingtian face and flew toward the northwest corner 95 miles away. Only 15 minutes later, they arrived at their destination and saw a brand new cave. Everyone was shocked and overjoyed as they looked at Yang Dingtian in disbelief. Chapter 8:16. Yao Li looked over in surprise and joy. She had no idea how Yang Dingtian did it. He could actually find the elemental creature's cave from hundreds of miles away. Yang Dingtian, is this a coincidence, or can you do this every time? Yao Li asked. Yang Dingtian. Every time I can do this. I can search every inch of a radius of more than 100 miles in half an hour. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. This was really heaven-defying. A radius of more than 100 miles, converted to an area of thousands of square kilometers. Even if a team of a few people searched quickly, it would take about a few hours. Because for a person to run and search within a radius of more than 100 miles, he would have to run more than 10,000 miles. And Yang Dingtian's search speed was dozens of times, or even 100 times, of Yao Li's 5-man team. Even Bo Lu, A1, and A Wu all showed very excited expressions. This way, they could find the elemental beasts in a short time. Yao Li glanced at Yang Dingtian, and then said directly, in this case, the ratio of shares has to be changed. You can't take a quarter anymore. You take a third. Then, before Yang Dingtian could speak, she waved her hand and said, it's settled. This woman was really domineering. What she said did not allow others to refute her. However, such an open and above-board character was really very cute. Okay, let's go in. If someone is fighting, we will try our best to avoid it. Don't fight with others because now we can find the elemental creatures in a short time. There is no need to take risks, Yao Li said. Then, the 6 of them quickly rushed down to the bottom of the cave. After more than 10,000 meters, they were about to reach the bottom. Yang Dingtian suddenly waved his hand and said, you all stop. I will go down and explore. If there is someone, I will come back immediately. We will leave here. No need. I will go. My cultivation is the highest. You all stay. Yao Li said and was about to rush down. Yang Dingtian stopped her and said, don't argue. I know how to become invisible and flash. I will go. Then, Yang Dingtian directly disappeared from their sight. Moreover, they could not even sense his energy aura. Yao Li and the others were completely stunned. He actually knew how to turn invisible. Furthermore, he was completely invisible. Yao Li, Bo Lu, and the others looked at each other. Meanwhile, Yao Zi's beautiful eyes lit up. She was in a state of ecstasy, and was especially curious about mysterious and powerful things. She immediately felt that Yang Dingtian was indeed very mysterious and extraordinary. Looking at Yang Dingtian's disappearing figure, her beautiful big eyes lit up with little stars again. Yao Li glared at her and said coldly, "Zi, don't forget that he is a human, and he already has many wives." Yao Zi's delicate face turned red, and she said angrily, "What are you talking about? I didn't say that I had to do anything with him. You are so annoying." Yang Dingtian's speed was very fast. In less than half a quarter of an hour, he was back. "There's no one down there, but I don't see any elemental creatures either," Yang Dingtian said. Yao Li said, "There definitely is. It's just hidden." Then, the 6 of them quickly rushed to the bottom of the cave. This cave abyss was very, very small compared to the Hydra and the flame demon from before. It was only about a few hundred square meters. However, there was nothing at the bottom of the pitch-black cave. There were no elemental creatures. It was precisely because of this that Yao Li and the others felt as if they were facing a great enemy. All the pores on their bodies were closed. Then, Yao Li turned her head and said to Yang Dingtian, "It's a shadow demon. Let's retreat. We can't fight." She didn't even dare to use sound waves to transmit her voice. Instead, she used her mouth. Shadow demon? Yang Dingtian was completely puzzled. Was this shadow demon very, very powerful? That's right, it's a shadow demon. There's no way to fight at all. Bo Lu's face was filled with fear as he said, "No team, no matter how powerful, is willing to encounter a shadow demon. Even if it's a rank 9 or rank 10 shadow demon, it will annihilate a team of dozens of people. Fighting a shadow demon is not worth the loss." Although Yang Dingtian was puzzled, he seemed to have some understanding of the shadow demon. However, since Yao Li and Bo Lu said not to fight, then not to fight. Thus, Yao Li led the team, and the 6 of them slowly left the cave. Squeak, 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 squeak. Right at this time, an incomparably sharp sound wave energy suddenly came from inside their ears. Even in a vacuum, it also drilled directly into their ears. Then, a black shadow suddenly flashed out from the depths of the abyss. Its body could not be seen at all. Only its green eyes could be seen. Yao Li and the rest had just heard the noise, and immediately ran frantically. But it was already too late. Virtually in the blink of an eye, that black shadow instantly arrived behind them. "It's over," Yao Li said tragically. "Quickly run. Yang Dingtian, take care of my sister." Yao Li used her fastest speed to block that black shadow and cover the few people to escape. Sure enough, that black shadow's sharp claws grabbed at the back of Yao Li's head almost like lightning. It was going to tear her into pieces in an instant. The speed was so fast that it was completely impossible to resist. Just as Yao Li was about to be killed, suddenly, this black shadow stopped and did not attack Yao Li. Instead, it turned its target to Yang Dingtian. It suddenly scuttled onto his body and directly lay on his back. Instantly, Yang Dingtian shuddered. This shadow demon, which was called a bug, was like a devil, lying on his neck and sniffing hard. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian knew what this was. Demon spirit. However, in Little Western Paradise, it was called a shadow demon. It was also very vivid. No wonder the demon fox experts in Little Western Paradise were not willing to touch it at all. 1,000-year-old demon spirit would require several great masters, dozens of masters, and hundreds of martial venerable cannon fodder to kill it. Facing it, unless you could kill it in an instant, you should run as far as you can. That was because its heaven-defying abilities were completely impossible to guard against. First of all, its flash was faster than any experts, and its sharp claws were sharper and harder than the bloody black gold sword. Moreover, its eyes, as long as one was stared at, one's divine consciousness would immediately explode. It would go berserk and kill crazily. "Everyone, close your eyes and stand where you are. Don't move," Yang Dingtian shouted. Although she didn't understand why Yang Dingtian was doing this, she still instinctively trusted him and said, "Do as Yang Dingtian says." Yang Dingtian was immediately touched. This Yao Li was very difficult to get along with. She found it difficult to trust people. However, once she trusted others, it was almost as if she was entrusting her life to them. At this moment, Yang Dingtian said that everyone should not move, so she did not move, nor did she run away. It was as if she had completely entrusted her life to Yang Dingtian. This demon spirit lay on Yang Dingtian's neck. Its sharp claws were on his neck, but it did not make a move, because it felt very strange, as if it felt a very familiar aura. Of course it was familiar. Yang Dingtian was wearing the demon spirit black armor, and the demon spirit mist robe. As for the demon spirit, it was an extremely ferocious creature that instinctively killed, but it was also very stupid. Therefore it didn't kill or let go. It just sniffed Yang Dingtian's body. At this time, Yang Dingtian's life was always lingering at the gates of hell, because as long as the demon spirit was willing, it could crush his head at any time. No one could save him, and Yang Dingtian couldn't stop it. Yaoli, this shadow demon is about 3 feet and 5 inches long. Its claws are 2 inches long. Then how old is it? What level is it? Yang Dingtian asked. Yaoli said, it should be around 2,900 years old, level 11. 2,900 years old. In the dark border of the human countries, there had never been a demon spirit of this level. The oldest one Yang Dingtian had seen was 2,300 years old. At that time, it was instantly killed by the saint-level ice spirit. What do you plan to do? Yaoli asked. Yang Dingtian. Don't worry, I have a way to kill it. As soon as these words came out, everyone was shocked. Kill the shadow demon? Was Yang Dingtian scared out of his wits? A team of more than a dozen people may be wiped out when encountering a level 11 shadow demon. Even if a half-step saint powerhouse encountered a level 11 shadow demon, unless they escaped fast enough, they would die without a doubt. Therefore, in the dark realm, no one was willing to encounter the shadow demon, because encountering it meant death. And Yang Dingtian, a mere level 9, wanted to kill a level 11 shadow demon? Was he dreaming? Yang Dingtian carefully took out an energy jade box from the space ring and opened it. Inside was a level 4 evil spirit. It was obtained from Qinqiqi. Sure enough, after seeing the evil spirit, the shadow demon was stunned. It stared at the evil spirit in a daze, motionless. Even if it was a level 11 demon spirit of 2,900 years old, its brain was also stupid. Yang Dingtian placed the level 4 evil spirit on the ground. The demon spirit jumped down from Yang Dingtian's body and squatted in front of the evil spirit. Its mouth kept chattering, as if it was chanting an incantation. Then, Yang Dingtian raised his near-emperor-grade soul sword and slashed at the demon spirit's left hand. Suddenly, Yaoli and the others were stunned. Yang Dingtian had finally escaped, but he didn't run away. Instead, he attacked the shadow demon. Was he courting death? But then an incomparably strange thing happened. The shadow demon didn't move at all, allowing Yang Dingtian's sword to slash at it. This demon spirit's arm was really hard to the extreme. Yang Dingtian's near-emperor-grade soul sword actually slashed at it hundreds of times before it was cut off. Just like that, Yang Dingtian raised his sword and slashed wildly, cutting off all the limbs of the 2,900 years old demon spirit. In this way, it couldn't move at all, nor could it hurt people. Then, Yang Dingtian used a thick black cloth to cover its eyes. It still didn't react. It squatted on the ground and looked at the level 4 evil spirit. It didn't move at all and chattered endlessly, because even if its eyes were covered, it could still feel the energy of the evil spirit. At this moment, all its attention was attracted by the evil spirit. It wanted to devour the evil spirit's energy, but it was afraid and didn't dare to. Just like that, it was conflicted. It wanted it, but it was also afraid. If nothing unexpected happened, this demon spirit would continue to be conflicted like this for 10 years, 100 years, until forever. This was an extremely ferocious, but extremely simple creature. Yang Dingtian cut off its limbs, but he couldn't kill it. Even if he cut off its head, he couldn't kill it. Because it was an energy life form, it had to be attacked with energy to destroy it. Looking at the demon spirit that had lost its limbs and was blindfolded on the ground, Yang Dingtian said, "All right, everyone attack it as fast as you can. Use your mystic chi to attack and destroy its energy shield. Only then will it die." Then Yang Dingtian made the first move. Clap, 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 clap. The devil's sky-splitting lightning burst out quickly. Seeing this shadow demon, that made all the demon fox experts tremble in fear actually take a beating without fighting back. Yao Li and the others' brains almost short-circuited. They looked at this scene in disbelief. Then, Yao Li started to attack with her mystic qi. Immediately after, Bo Lu, Yao Zi, A Wen, and A Wu also used their fastest speed to launch mystic qi attacks. Boom, 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 boom. The 6 of them used all their strength to attack desperately. This 11th level demon spirit was really heaven-defying. They fought for a full 20 minutes or so. Yang Dingtian alone released more than 300 devil sky-splitting lightning. Almost everyone's mystic qi was almost exhausted. Bang! Suddenly, the 11th level demon spirit's energy shield exploded. After the energy shield exploded, the demon spirit was extremely weak. A light mystic qi attack was enough to kill it. After the demon spirit died, Yang Dingtian used his fastest speed to wrap up the demon spirit's corpse with his energy cloak. A 2,900-year-old demon spirit was full of treasures from head to toe. Demon spirit heart, demon spirit eye, demon spirit black armor, and demon spirit mist. In the human countries, these were priceless treasures that could only be found by chance. After the demon spirit died, an 11th level energy essence floated in the air. Yang Dingtian, go and get it, Yao Li said. Yang Dingtian, this shadow demon's corpse is very precious. I want it. I won't share this energy essence. You take it. Yao Li said. I said you take it, so you take it. Because you have to break through to the 10th level as soon as possible. At that time, your combat strength will rise to a level. It will also be beneficial to our team's combat strength. However, this 11th level energy essence is not enough. The next one is still for you. We'll take the next 4. Alright then. Yang Dingtian did not argue. He took it and put it into the energy jade box. When he hunted another 11th level essence, he would devour it together. To be honest, every time they went to cultivate in the past, Yang Dingtian was the leader. All the distribution was done by him. Now the leader of the team was Yao Li. The distribution authority was given to her. Although this feeling was very strange, it was also very good. Because Yao Li was indeed a very fair and selfless leader. Although she was a woman, she also had the charm of a leader. If Yao Qi did not die, she and Jia, one civil and one martial, could indeed become Yao Qi's most capable assistants. Suddenly, Yang Dingtian could not help but sigh for Yao Qi. It could be said that the 2 most outstanding women in Little Western Paradise admired and worshipped him. He could definitely be considered a hero of a generation. Alright, let's go. If others discover this cave, we will be in danger, Yao Li said. Then, the 6 of them quickly left the cave and continued to explore the north. Today was Yang Dingtian's lucky day. He hoped that there would still be surprises in the future. The 6 of them continued to head north. Yang Dingtian released countless resentful spirits and continued to search every inch of the ground. Just 4 hours later, there was a sudden burst of violent energy fluctuations. No way, another one was found. This was too heaven-defying. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.